Chapter 1725, Declaration of New Order, Part 1. As I said, each of us has tried our best in this war, but we still haven't achieved a comprehensive victory. Why? Is it because the Galactic Republic is too weak? Is it because we don't work hard enough? Is it because separatism is too powerful? In the meeting hall of the Galactic Parliament building, the Speaker of the Republic, Sheev Palpatine, stood on the central anti-gravity platform, delivering an impassioned speech as always. His voice was powerful and passionate, his expression unwavering, and his movements full of energy. Every word he spoke struck everyone's heart like a heavy hammer. He suddenly paused and raised his hands. Silence enveloped the room as everyone held their breath, watching his every move. The atmosphere of the entire venue and everyone's emotions were under his control. "Yes," Palpatine said softly, his eyes turning cold as he looked around. His tone gradually became sinister. "I said, yes." There was another moment of silence. Then Palpatine's words exploded like thunder. "That's right. Yes. It's because our Galactic Republic is too weak. It's because the Separatists are very strong. It's also because each of us doesn't work hard enough. Yes, that's the answer." His voice was almost hysterical as he clenched his fists and waved them in the air. Everyone can see how powerful the Separatists are. They have occupied the Outer Rim and are supported by those evil planets. Especially Count Dooku. He betrayed the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic. In the end, he betrayed freedom by betraying democracy. Yes, he is powerful. But does that mean we cannot resist? No. It is because our Galactic Republic is too weak. This weakness is not due to our industrial production capacity, nor our population, nor the number of planets or warships we have. It is because of the people's hearts. Among the trillions of people in the Galactic Republic, how many truly believe that I am a member of the Republic? How many are willing to sacrifice everything for the Republic? What I want to say is, not all of them. He grabbed the paper copy of the 2,000 People book from his desk, using so much force that the paper partially tore. He intentionally let the document pass through the microphone, and the tearing sound echoed throughout the entire venue. This is why we are so weak. On their respective anti-gravity platforms, almost all the 2,000 signatories, including Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and others, felt their hearts sink. They had noticed that something was off from the beginning of the speech. Palpatine was uncharacteristically intense today. He was no longer humble or kind, but showed his most extreme and violent side. The content of his speech was deeply disturbing. However, they had no chance to interrupt. On the stage, Palpatine held up the torn declaration of 2,000 people and said loudly, "Look, this is why Count Dooku is always at large. At the most critical moment of the war, there were actually 2,000 people who signed their names asking me to give up my power. But am I giving up my power? No. What I am giving up is the safety of the entire Galactic Republic." Hearing his words, the grumpy Congressman Tang Xiao stood up suddenly and shouted, "What a bunch of nonsense." "Shut up!" Palpatine pointed at Tang Xiao and interrupted him directly. His voice resounded through the entire venue like thunder falling from the sky. Everyone's ears were ringing, stunned by the sound of him using the dark side of the Force. Tang Xiao's throat was directly strangled by an invisible force. He couldn't say a word and even had difficulty breathing. He could only struggle desperately. After a long time, the force relaxed, and Tang Xiao collapsed to the ground. Palpatine's eyes burned with a fierce intensity as he continued his speech. Palpatine's speech continued, his voice softening slightly. "No one understands better than I do the problems plaguing the Galactic Republic. Yes, the Republic is weak and impoverished, unable to combat pirates or curb the exploitation by corporate giants. Even the taxation of the Outer Rim territories has always been mere lip service. Despite its vast expanse, it is the taxpayers of the Inner Rim and the Core Worlds who sustain the Republic's operations. Can anyone truly claim that such a Galactic Republic is powerful? Young people no longer take pride in serving as soldiers of the Republic, and planets no longer boast about being part of it. To those colossal corporations, the Galactic Republic is merely a tool for profit. The Battle of Naboo in the Maristal Fjord, wasn't that clear enough?" Palpatine's voice grew louder. "My home is the planet Naboo. When my planet was invaded by the Trade Federation, the Galactic Republic couldn't send a single soldier. The Jedi Order only dispatched 2 Jedi Knights through unofficial channels. This is the Galactic Republic. This is the Jedi Order. They once protected the galaxy, but what right do they have now to call themselves its guardians? I see it more clearly than anyone else. Why has the Galactic Republic reached this state? Because it has no real power. In the Senate, everyone can challenge the Republic's decisions. Every bill takes an eternity to pass. When the planet Donderbu faced invasion, the Senate was still debating whether it was a genuine invasion. When the Separatists signed the secession agreement on Geonosis, the Senate didn't even consider that the Republic should have an army to maintain peace and unity. And this is why the Galactic Republic is so weak. Palpatine threw the 2,000 people book into the air, and countless papers fluttered down like snowflakes. Now, what I want to say is, why have we been able to fight this far? Is it because of our powerful fleet? Is it because of our elite soldiers? No. It's because of me. It's because I unified the Galactic Republic. I forcibly corrected its flaws and took all responsibilities upon myself. Palpatine's enthusiasm surged. And now I must tell everyone, the bloodshed on Yagodol and in the model sector was not in vain. The efforts of Admiral Gideon Tarkin and the late Admiral Cassio Targ were not in vain. Thanks to their sacrifices, the planet Dawn has realized its mistake. They have returned to our fold. That's right, the dawn of victory is right before us. Chapter 726, Declaration of New Order, Part 2. Dawn Planet? Surrendered? When did this happen? When Palpatine uttered these explosive words, everyone was stunned. Dawn Planet? Why Dawn Planet? Everyone knew that since the war broke out, the Separatist camp had 2 extremely powerful forces, the Confederation of Independent Systems led by Count Dooku and Dawn Planet led by Tang Xiao. Although Dawn Planet was technically part of the Confederation of Independent Systems, it had grown increasingly powerful as the war progressed. Initially, it operated independently in theater operations and later developed its own military command system. This meant that Dawn Planet's fleet was no longer under the command of General Grievous, the supreme military commander of the Confederation of Independent Systems. Eventually, Count Dooku even recognized Dawn Planet's financial and industrial independence. Tang Xiao then proclaimed himself Grand Duke of Dawn, a title that echoed Count Dooku's own. This title was completely different from the liberal democratic government that the Confederation of Independent Systems had always adhered to, but Count Dooku acquiesced to it. From that point on, the relationship between Tang Xiao and the Confederation of Independent Systems became more of an alliance, with Tang Xiao still recognizing Count Dooku as the leader of this alliance. Given this relationship, why did Dawn Planet surrender? Bail Organa and other congressmen suddenly realized that in his speech, Palpatine mentioned separatism and Count Dooku, but he did not mention Tang Xiao at all. Was this a foreshadowing that had been buried from the beginning of the meeting? Moreover, each of these counselors had their own sources of information. They were aware of the Yago-Dur battle and the model sector raid, which had been highly publicized in recent days. Despite the media hype, these were 2 disastrous defeats, no doubt about it. These defeats were thanks to Dawn Planet. In fact, these fiascos were the theoretical basis for Bail Organa and others to submit the 2,000 people letter, which discussed the corruption caused by excessive concentration of power within the Galactic Republic. But now, Palpatine was telling them that the Dawn Principality had surrendered. How could this be? 3 war zones, 2 battlefields, and a massive force of more than 700 capital ships had failed to penetrate the solid defense line of the Dawn Principality. What had happened to make the Dawn Principality surrender directly? Even if they didn't surrender, the Galactic Republic had already lost the ability to strategically attack and could not threaten the Principality of Dawn at all. Everyone was puzzled and unprepared for Palpatine's move, caught completely off guard. However, Palpatine projected a document into the holographic display, and this document was signed by Dawn Planet. The document stated that Dawn Planet was willing to break away from the Confederation of Independent Systems and accept the leadership of the Coruscant government headed by Sheev Palpatine. The 2 parties would be friendly and mutually beneficial, creating a harmonious and beautiful world. There were also a series of detailed terms, including reopening trade exchanges, establishing a high-level dialogue mechanism, and jointly developing unknown star fields. At the very end, there was a signature that could not be forged: Grand Duke Li Ming, Tang Xiao. When they saw this document, Bail Organa and Mon Mothma exchanged solemn glances. With Bail Organa's keen insight, they naturally saw several problems with the document. Title: The Dawn of a New Era. This document from the Principality of Dawn is not for the Galactic Republic. It's for the current Coruscant government, headed by Sheev Palpatine. The signature at the bottom still reads Grand Duke of Dawn. What does this mean? Does the Galactic Republic now recognize Tang Xiao's status as Grand Duke? Is there a warlord emerging within the Galactic Republic? No, not the Galactic Republic. It's Palpatine. This statement makes no mention of the Galactic Republic at all. Bail Organa almost collapsed to the ground. Only now did he understand why former Speaker Finis Valorum took great risks to come to him the night before, and why he arbitrarily removed his name from the list of 2,000 people. It was erased from the book because, on the central anti-gravity platform, Sheev Palpatine's voice was low and rich. Yes, that's right. This is the right path for the galaxy. The Jedi Order, who wanted to usurp power, have been eliminated, and our loyal soldiers are hunting these traitors across thousands of planets. The planet Dawn has surrendered and has become one of our glorious members. Count Dooku is dying. Citizens of the entire galaxy, today we will witness a great transformation. For 1,000 years, the Republic has stood at the top of the civilized world with its supreme achievements, but there are always some with sinister intentions who instigate us against each other. To defend our common beliefs, we resolutely took up arms and fought against the separatists. However, we never expected that the biggest threat would come from within ourselves. Some with ulterior motives in the Jedi Order and the Galactic Senate have been plotting to cast the shadow of separatism over us. They intend to crush the Republic and turn it into scorched earth. But their conspiracy cannot remain hidden forever. Finally, they took off their disguises and revealed their true colors. The Jedi Order attempted to unleash their destructive power on the Republic by assassinating the heads of government and seizing command of the clone army. But the plans of these would-be tyrants were met with a ferocious counterattack by an elite force. Our loyal clone soldiers stopped uprisings in the Jedi Temple and suppressed their usurpation of power on thousands of planets. But it's not over. The Jedi Order's allies in the Council are still active. They want to pierce that vicious dagger into our defenseless hearts at the critical moment of the war. But I promise you, every enemy will be defeated, arrested, and then executed. The dawn of victory is at hand. The Dawn Planet has surrendered, the Separatist forces have fallen apart, and the Jedi Order's rebellion has been thwarted. We stand at the beginning of a new era. Although we paid a heavy price in this process, I can guarantee it. My determination has never been as firm as it is at this moment. His voice was resounding, and those in the Loyalist Committee in the Parliament, as well as many members who were infected by his enthusiasm or succumbed to his power, applauded thunderously. We will abandon the corrupt and weak past. We will reclench the iron fist. We will ignite the passion again. To ensure the stability of the galaxy and the safety of our supporters, I hereby announce: the Galactic Republic will be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. The applause grew more deafening. The entire Parliament Hall fell into complete madness. The congressmen clapped and cheered loudly, making their voices heard in every way they could to express their support for Palpatine. A secure and stable society will last for 10,000 years. The Empire will continue to be ruled by this august institution and its chosen lifelong head. The Empire will be ruled by the majority and a new constitution. Bail Organa felt his vision darken and almost fell to the ground. Palpatine had actually taken such a step. He destroyed the Galactic Republic. Republic destroyed democracy, destroyed freedom, destroyed the Parliament too. This is Palpatine's most powerful response to the Book of 2,000 people. Don't you want me to return my power to you? Don't you want to safeguard the democracy and freedom of the Republic? Well, let me tell you now, everything you insist on has come to nothing. What else can be done now? Bail Organa remembered the advice Finis Valorum gave him, survive. He gritted his teeth and patted his hands together with trembling fingers. Bang, 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 bang. The unintentional applause merged into the crazy feast in the Parliament Hall and was drowned without a trace. Looking up, Mon Mothma was also applauding. However, their anti-gravity platforms were not far apart, and Bail Organa could clearly see the crystal tears in the corners of Senator Mothma's eyes. The two looked at each other, and both saw the deep despair and endless sorrow in each other. Bail Organa couldn't help but think of another person at this moment. If Senator Padme Amidala were present, what choice would she make? Would she fight to the end? Or would she, like us, applaud the new emperor, the murderer who destroyed the Galactic Republic? So amid this wild applause, the Galactic Republic finally completed its more than 25,000 years of history and came to an end. Looking back at the splendid history of the Galactic Republic, they had been tenacious and defeated one enemy after another. From the civil war of the Jedi Order to the war with the Infinite Empire, and then experienced the rise of the Sith Empire and the Mandalorian Crusaders. After that, the martyrs of the Galactic Republic fought bravely to defeat the Eternal Empire and the new Sith Empire, finally bringing the war that lasted for 24,000 years to an end and becoming the true overlord of the galaxy. Today, however, after just 1,000 years of peace, the Galactic Republic has come to an end, and the one who overthrew her was the greatest enemy of the Republic, the Sith. How ironic, how sad. Palpatine's speech continued amid waves of applause. The entire galaxy will abide by the same laws, speak the same language, and obey the wise leadership of the same people. In this way, we will forever be free from the corruption that spread everywhere at the end of the Republic. Sector governors will sweep away the bureaucracy to prevent similar separatist movements from quietly rising, and strong military force can ensure the enforcement of the law. Under the Empire's new order, our most cherished beliefs will be preserved. A strong military will defend our ideals. We will never compromise with our opponents and stand united against internal and external aggression. Let those enemies of the Empire listen. All attempts to endanger the Empire will be crushed. This process has a long way to go, but the people of the Empire are ready to meet the challenge. It is our efforts that have allowed the war to be extinguished, the turmoil to subside, and peace to return to the galaxy. Trillions of creatures are eagerly looking forward to it and hope for a stable future. Whether it is from the Outer Rim or the wild and unknown star realm, as long as there is a galaxy that longs for a stable life, the Empire will satisfy its wishes. At the same time, the citizens of the Empire must do their jobs, join the Imperial Starfleet, report suspected saboteurs, and become the Empire's loyal informants. Travel to all corners of the galaxy to preach the purposes of the Empire's new order to uncivilized people. Build monuments, and create technological marvels to show the glory of the Empire to our descendants. The clone troopers, now proudly known as Imperial Stormtroopers, will fight on the front lines against the enemies of the Empire. Many of them have died in service to their country and will forever be remembered by our people for their contribution. The peace of the new order will crush the ulterior plots of those with ulterior motives, and the future of the Empire will be bright. It will achieve unimaginable heights. Under my leadership, we have withstood the test and emerged stronger. From now on, we will move forward united. We share a resounding name, citizens of the First Empire of the Galaxy. We will achieve final victory. 10,000 years of peace begin today. Palpatine's rousing speech ignited waves of enthusiasm in the Congress, completely electrifying the atmosphere. Yes, it marked the end of the Galactic Republic, but it was a triumphant end. At this moment, no one mourned the fall of the decadent Galactic Republic. Everyone cheered for the dawn of the new First Empire of the Galaxy. The Republic was now a relic of the past, and the Galactic Empire represented the future of the galaxy. My determination has never been as firm as it is at this moment. I hereby announce it. The Galactic Republic will be reorganized into the First Empire of the Galaxy. Even through the holographic projection, Palpatine's speech was brimming with passion, and the fervent atmosphere of the scene could be felt across countless light years. Clap, Clap, clap. The sound of applause echoed beside the holographic projection. Tang Xiao sat on the sofa, legs crossed, clapping his hands. His eyes were filled with mockery and irony. No matter which angle you look at it from, this is a perfect speech, Tang Xiao said with a sneer. The combination of elimination and defeat not only established enemies, but also charted the future. All the shortcomings of the Galactic Republic have been transformed into the strengths of the Galactic Empire. Palpatine succeeded in making everyone aware of his merits. We all know he has no intention of realizing any of those promises. Standing next to Tang Xiao were the Prime Minister of the Dawn Principality, Francis Underwood, and the Chief Minister of the Cabinet, Helmut Zemo. Thanks to Guardian Calvin Land for the 500 starting coins. Chapter 727, Dawn Agreement. It's not important. Palpatine's lie only needs to allow him to survive the first 10 years of the Galactic Empire smoothly, just like his first term after becoming the Speaker, Tang Xiaolin said coldly. His first term as Speaker was completely humble, peaceful, and approachable, which even made people feel that he was very weak, Francis Underwood added. Everyone thought he was just Phoenix Valoran's second-in-command, so they all moved closer to him, hoping to draw him into their own camp. In this process, Palpatine gained support from both sides. But I still feel very unwilling, Chief of General Staff Qi Jian said. We all know that Palpatine's current situation is very fragile, but we were unable to seize this opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Palpatine and his Galactic Empire are fragile, but we are even more vulnerable, Helmut Zemo interjected, glancing at Qi Jian. Our industrial production capacity has been stretched to the limit. With the end of the model sector battle, the model sector will definitely fall into a turbulent state. Not only will we not receive help from the model sector, but we will also need to invest a lot of resources to stabilize the situation and rebuild the planet Anaji. Qi Jian shook his head. Of course, I understand. After the two major battles in the model sector and the Yagodur system, our mobile fleet is basically half disabled, with only the Xuanwu left to support us. Unlike when we captured the planet Terminus a year and a half ago, our fleet was undergoing a replacement. Even if more than half of the mobile fleet was lost, it could be rebuilt. But now, our own production capacity has been greatly affected, and the domestic war pressure has continued to increase, almost to the edge of collapse, Qi Jian sighed. I only hope that in this decade, we can be reborn. As for diplomacy, the first principle is that there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, Francis Underwood said. In politics, the most important thing is position. This time, we changed our position, which is the biggest benefit to us. As for the Galactic Empire, if you think about it carefully, they actually didn't gain anything, because we couldn't do anything in the first place. Tang Xiao didn't speak. He just looked at the holographic projection. On it, Sheev Palpatine's speech was played repeatedly, and a scribe on the side recorded the full text. Experts from various fields then interpreted it word for word, uncovering all the explicit and implicit meanings of the speech. This diplomatic strategy was initiated by Tang Xiao. Surprisingly, he originally thought that many of his senior officials would object, but almost everyone was in favor of the ceasefire and signing an agreement with the Galactic Republic. This included military personnel such as Qi Jian, Matt Horner, Ling Liang, Shan Hui, and Cheng Shitao. But if you think about it carefully, it makes sense. Everyone could see clearly that the Principality of Liming really could not afford to continue fighting. As Qi Jian mentioned, after the two major battles, it seemed that the Principality of Dawn had won a great victory, but was this victory costless? Not at all. In the Battle of Yagodur, the Principality of Dawn lost 27 main warships and more than 80 small and medium-sized warships. Moreover, the Aganev-class interstellar base was severely damaged, forced into synchronous orbit, and then thrown out when the Yagodur planet changed its orbit. It has now been swallowed by the number 2 star. The cost of building an interstellar base is comparable to that of a small fleet. This is the fundamental reason why the Aganev-class interstellar base. The base can protect the periphery of the planet like a strong shield on the battlefield. However, due to the violent orbit change of the Yagodur planet, it has not yet completely entered a stable orbit. This instability will cause the production capacity of Yagodur to drop by at least 70%. In other words, if we want to maintain the defense line of Yagodur, we must continue to provide assistance to the Jiwen people through the Principality of Dawn. Moreover, the Jiwen people are also tasked with the important job of continuing to build the second Ankaran-class Titan battleship, the Yuanju. This project is a bottomless pit that consumes a lot of resources and production capacity. However, abandoning the Yagodur planet is not an option. The given people's plan to immigrate to the Loda planet has not yet been launched, and the value of the three-body system of the Yagodur system as a natural line of defense is inestimable. The Battle of Yagodur has demonstrated how well the given people, who are familiar with this galaxy, can fight here, while it is difficult for the invaders to gain the same advantage. The Yagodur galaxy is a three-body galaxy, and understanding its rules is a significant challenge. After this battle, the Galactic Republic, now the Galactic Empire, will likely be more cautious or even give up on entering the Yagodur system again. Abandoning the Yagodur system now would probably make Palpatine laugh out loud. On the other side, the model sector is in an even more tragic state. The Galactic Republic Expeditionary Force has an unprecedented power of more than 300 capital ships. With such a massive force, even Tang Xiao had to transform into Darth Malthael and personally engage in combat. In this battle, the Principality of Dawn suffered heavy losses. Firstly, the loss of battleships was significant. In the prolonged space station battle outside the planet Anaji, the Principality of Dawn lost a total of 29 capital ships and more than 60 small and medium-sized battleships. Although this may not seem like much, it is due to the guerrilla tactics employed in Volgograd Khanidi. Unlike the Yagodur battle, there were not many direct exchanges of fire between the two sides. Among the losses were 6 Knight-class Star Destroyers and 8 Jaeger-class battlecruisers, which Darth Malthael personally engaged with his death force. Governor Kennedy used these warships as human shields, effectively reducing our own losses. Despite these efforts, after the war, the remaining naval warships were severely damaged, with many needing to return to the dock for overhauls lasting more than 3 months. Therefore, the fleet that participated in the space battle around the planet Anaji is essentially out of commission. The planet Anaji, which was directly attacked by the Galactic Republic, is in an even more dire situation. Thanks to Guardian Calvin Land for the 500 starting coins. Chapter 1728, Dawn Agreement, Part 2. Under the strategic plan of Governor Volgograd Kennedy, the planet Anaji took the bold step of deactivating its planetary shield, thereby enticing the Republic Expeditionary Force to initiate a landing operation. This maneuver effectively divided the strength of the Republic fleet, preventing them from concentrating all their forces on a decisive frontal battle with the Dawn Principality fleet. However, the cost was significant. Anaji bore the brunt of the Galactic Republic's firepower. Learning from past experiences, the Galactic Republic Expeditionary Force first conducted a devastating orbital bombardment of Anaji before attempting a landing. Although Cassio Tag, the commander-in-chief of the Republic Expeditionary Force, refrained from a planet-destroying bombardment to preserve Anaji as an advance base, the damage inflicted was still severe. It's worth noting that the firepower of the Jaeger-class battlecruisers alone was insufficient to obliterate the planet's surface. However, the sheer number of Republic warships, over 200 Jaeger-class ships, enabled a concentrated bombardment that, while not turning the planet into glass, could still transform Anaji into a desert. TAG specifically targeted military facilities and major cities to facilitate the landing of troops. Following the landing, the Republic fleet continued with precision orbital strikes on all detected assembly points of Anaji's defenders. A large number of Republic fighter jets also conducted overwhelming precision bombings and fire suppression, causing extensive damage. In a desperate bid to halt the Republic's relentless advance, which was bolstered by absolute air and space superiority, Volgograd Kennedy resorted to deploying T-virus biological weapons on a large scale. The use of these weapons inevitably affected local civilians, prompting Cassio Tag to order further large-scale orbital bombings to neutralize the biological threat. While these bombardments provided the Dawn Principality's fleet with a temporary reprieve, the planet Anaji suffered immensely. In the ensuing battles, the Galactic Republic mobilized hundreds of thousands of troops, launching an all-out assault under the cover of tens of thousands of fighter jets and bombers. The conflict escalated into a tragic and brutal engagement. Despite evacuation efforts, the battles on Anaji resulted in over 45 million civilian casualties. More than 70% of the planet's capital area was destroyed, along with 14 other cities. The Planet Guard suffered over 700,000 fatalities and 1.1 million injuries. Almost all armored units were annihilated, the Air Force was decimated, and most airports and spaceports were obliterated. This once precious planet, classified as a Gaia planet, was reduced to scorched Earth, requiring substantial resources and time for reconstruction. In the subsequent air battle over Dawn Planet, although Tag's 96 elite warships were completely destroyed, the Dawn Principality also incurred significant losses due to the enemy's fierce resistance. Tang Xiao deployed over 4,000 small and medium-sized warships, including those from Blood Dawn, White Worm, Aruba the Hutt, Ni Yongxiao Gang, Scourge Legion, and the Escort Fleet. Essentially, every available flying vessel in the Principality of Dawn was mobilized. Despite these efforts, more than 800 warships of various types were lost. This was partly mitigated by the presence of the Mothership Glory, which Tang Xiao once again charged to the front lines, acting as a human shield. Among the forces, Bloody Dawn and White Worm contributed minimally, suffering relatively minor losses of about 60 battleships. However, the Rift-class frigate formation, which Tang Xiao had helped build with Aruba the Hutt, faced devastating losses, with more than half of their 180 ships destroyed. Despite these heavy losses, the Rift-class frigates effectively suppressed the Republic's fighter fleet, creating favorable conditions for the ensuing battle. The most severe losses were suffered by the escort fleet of the Principality of Dawn, which lost over 300 warships. These escort fleets are crucial for maintaining connections between the Principality's vast resource-producing areas and colonies. The loss of more than 300 escort warships means that a significant number of transportation routes will be affected. Interstellar pirates are unlikely to cease their activities just because the Principality of Dawn defeated the Galactic Republic. Therefore, despite the Principality of Dawn's complete annihilation of Tag's fleet in the air battle over Dawn Planet, the impact on itself was profound. The disruption of transportation routes will inevitably decrease the flow of resources. Additionally, allies such as Bloody Dawn, White Worm, and Aruba the Hutt, who sent fleets to assist, will expect Tang Xiao to repay the favor. Amid these heavy losses, the Principality of Dawn is in no position to continue fighting. Public opinion is also a critical factor. Although Tang Xiao had encouraged the Fourth Civilization to embark on the path of war from the beginning, provoking the most powerful enemy in the galaxy so soon after its inception was difficult for everyone to accept. The negative impact of hostility towards the Galactic Republic is comprehensive, affecting trade, people's livelihoods, and communication between residents. Every aspect of life is subject to sanctions and restrictions by the Galactic Republic. The Principality of Dawn, having invested almost all its power in scientific research and military industry, relies heavily on civilian products from the Galactic Republic. For example, hyperspace communicators and holographic projection equipment are all imported from the Galactic Republic. Although the Principality has a cooperative relationship with the Trade Federation, it can still obtain these products despite being at war with the Galactic Republic. From another perspective, the Galactic Republic will not pass up the opportunity to profit from the Principality of Dawn through civilian industries. After all, they make their own money, and the finances of the Principality of Dawn will also increase, providing more support for the war effort. However, starting a war immediately after establishing a foothold meant that society was entirely geared towards war. After more than 2 years of conflict, public opinion in the Principality of Dawn has reached its limit. The Principality is simply not ready for a full-scale war. Under these circumstances, a peace agreement with the Galactic Republic became imperative. Tang Xiao took the initiative to seek contact with the Speaker of the Republic, Sheev Palpatine. One day after the Yago-Dur battle, Tang Xiao reached out to Palpatine and conveyed his intention to make peace. Surprisingly, Palpatine, who was also eager for a resolution, agreed. Thus, a remarkable spectacle unfolded. Two Sith Lords sitting together, actually discussing peace. Chapter 1729, Dawn Agreement, Part 2. When Palpatine received the call from Tang Xiao, he was genuinely surprised. Between the two Sith Lords, there was no longer any room for negotiation. Only life and death remained. Talk? There was really nothing to discuss. This was Palpatine's initial thought, but Tang Xiao's first words dispelled this notion and convinced him to continue the conversation. Salutations to you, the esteemed Emperor of the Galactic Empire, His Majesty Palpatine, Tang Xiao said with a smile. Previously, Palpatine had dropped his first name, retaining only his surname. The name Sith had become history, and Palpatine now represented both his family and himself. Seeing Tang Xiao's earnest expression in the holographic projection, Palpatine's expression hardened. I am now the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. This is not a place for you to spout nonsense, separatist war criminal. You are the second most wanted criminal in the galaxy, Tang Xiao, Palpatine retorted. There is no need to hide it. You are almost ready to reorganize the Galactic Republic into the First Galactic Empire, Palpatine, Tang Xiao said calmly. The only question now is, when do you plan to declare it? Today? Tomorrow? It seems you have obtained a lot of information from Hego Damask II. Palpatine's expression shifted slightly, attributing Tang Xiao's foresight to his master. Before Tang Xiao appeared, he and Hego Damask II had proposed a complete plan on how to subvert the Galactic Republic. But even so, Tang Xiao's knowledge of the name of his planned empire still surprised him. Let's get straight to the point, Palpatine. When do you plan to continue attacking Dawn Planet? Tang Xiao asked directly. A ferocious smile appeared on Palpatine's face. Soon, dear Tang Xiao, soon. I will place your body alongside Hego's, one on the left and one on the right, and display them in front of my desk to admire every day. Then I'll be waiting for you on Dawn Planet. Come on, Tang Xiao sneered. You won't be proud for long, Tang Xiao. Soon, I will attack with 10 times or 100 times the strength. Your small planet and poor allies cannot resist my offensive forever, Palpatine said with a grim smile. 10 times? 100 times? Ha ha ha! Tang Xiao laughed. Then what you will get will only be 10 times or 100 times more corpses. Tell me, Palpatine, when will your next attack be? 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years and 10 years? This has nothing to do with you. You just need to wait for death to come. Palpatine gritted his teeth. However, Tang Xiao smiled and changed the subject. Then how about I surrender? Palpatine's expression suddenly changed. He stared at Tang Xiao with a sinister and terrifying look, like a poisonous snake. However, Tang Xiao seemed not to notice his terrifying expression and continued. The Principality of Dawn and its jurisdiction will surrender to the current Coruscant regime headed by Palpatine and become a member of the Coruscant regime again, including, but not limited to, the Galactic Republic or the Galactic Empire. He did not reveal all his cards. At this moment, he listed Palpatine's dilemmas one by one. It seemed pretentious, but in fact, it was a very foolish way of negotiating, especially with someone as shrewd as Palpatine. Palpatine was naturally well aware of his own predicament, but for him to think about it himself and for someone else to point it out directly had completely opposite effects. Tang Xiao knew he could not compete with Palpatine in eloquence, even if Francis Underwood were standing next to him, guiding his choice of words. Therefore, he stated his conditions straightforwardly and left it to Palpatine to judge the process. Sure enough, when he said these words, Palpatine did not directly taunt him, nor did he refuse him. Instead, he looked at him with extremely fierce eyes. Indeed, Palpatine saw beyond the surface. He understood that Tang Xiao's offer was designed to be irresistible. Not only was it difficult to refuse, but it also required Palpatine to provide Tang Xiao with substantial benefits. Essentially, Tang Xiao was signaling his willingness to surrender, but he wanted the same advantages that Palpatine had received. Realizing this instantly, Palpatine's expression darkened. If someone else had been present and heard Tang Xiao's words, they might have thought, "Oh, are you surrendering? Great, I accept. But if that were the case, Tang Xiao would have considered them a fool. This is the essence of political negotiations. If you only see the surface, you are destined to be manipulated and outplayed. Palpatine didn't respond immediately. He simply glared at Tang Xiao, who calmly stared back. The two Sith Lords, one senior and one junior, locked eyes in a tense standoff. Tang Xiao, with his larger eyes and striking handsomeness, second only to Master Jing, not a joke, knew that Palpatine was in a precarious situation. Palpatine needed to act on his ambition to declare himself emperor, or his position as speaker might be at risk. Recent failures, particularly in the military operations against the Principality of Dawn, had dealt a significant blow to Palpatine, both militarily and politically. The outbreak of this war had granted Palpatine emergency ruling powers from the Parliament. If the war had gone smoothly, like the Clone Wars in the original plot, all the glory would have been his, and becoming emperor would have been a natural progression. However, this was not the case. The emergency ruling power was a double-edged sword, and the series of failures had become Palpatine's responsibility. This was why members of Parliament, led by Bail Organa and others, were constantly seeking to impeach him. If Palpatine continued to play the democratic game with Bail Organa and the others, it would only lead to prolonged uncertainty and potential downfall. The failures of the Model Sector assault battle and the Yago Dur system battle were particularly damaging. The consequences were becoming apparent, including significant changes at the Quat Power shipyard, reduced warship production, a massive financial deficit, and enormous pension obligations. Unlike the Kamino clone troopers, the Spartai clone troopers couldn't be used as generalists or battleship operators. Most of the current Republic Navy officers and soldiers were ordinary people who required pensions if they died in battle. While the media could whitewash and distort battle results, they couldn't bring the dead back to life. Their families would demand pensions from the government. As the consequences of these battles became more evident, Palpatine's reputation would suffer greatly. With the shifting tides, how long could he withstand the impeachment efforts led by Bail Organa? Turning the tables was Palpatine's only option. Thanks to 2113-ager and the Assimilation Fighter for the 1,500 starting coins. Special thanks to Guardian Calvin Lan for the 500 starting coins. Join the live broadcast tonight at 20, Station B, room number 24141374. Chapter 1730, Dawn Agreement. Part 2. Since Palpatine wants to flip the table, he must have a good reason. Although most politicians' words are empty, for something as significant as proclaiming himself emperor, he needs a convincing argument to prove his ideas are correct. Otherwise, who would believe Palpatine, especially after repeated battlefield defeats, when he claims to be the only way out for the Galactic Republic? In the original plot, Palpatine still controls Count Dooku. He manipulates Anakin Skywalker into killing Dooku and then eliminates the leaders of the 5 major corporations, including Sand Hill and Newt Gunray, ending the war within days. This would naturally be a great achievement. But now things are different. Count Dooku, influenced by Tang Xiao, has seen through the conspiracy and gone solo. Among the 5 major corporate giants, Sand Hill and Newt Gunray have become Tang Xiao's allies. The corporate alliance is trembling. The Trade Federation has been divided, and the grass on Shu Mai's grave is 2 meters high. The last technology alliance was secretly colluding with the Galactic Republic, but under the current circumstances, how could it still attack the technology alliance? It's too late to win them over. The Galactic Republic has now achieved significant results against the Confederacy of Independent Systems. In previous counterattacks, they cleared a large part of the Northeast, and on the eastern battlefield, they also liberated the Central Sector, captured by the Confederacy 2 years before the war. They are now besieging the key planet leading to the core of Confederacy rule, Salukami. However, there has been no progress in the Principality of Dawn war zone. So from this perspective, the end of the war seems far away. So, what leverage does Palpatine plan to use to reorganize the Galactic Republic into the Galactic Empire? This bargaining chip was now handed to him by Tang Xiao, the surrender of the Dawn Principality. If that were the case, it would be great. First of all, it would explain the disastrous defeats in the Model Sector raid, and the Yago-Dur system battle. You see, Planet Dawn really surrendered. I was right when I said that Cassio Targ and Gideon Tarkin beat Tang Xiao until he cried for his father and mother. Right? Don't you believe it yet? So Palpatine's biggest problem now instantly became his biggest political achievement, and through this, he could accomplish many things. For example, what he wants to do most right now is to turn over the table. Okay, so now the bargaining chip Tang Xiao has given is big enough. What's the price? Palpatine looked gloomy, and after being silent for a long time, he slowly asked, "What do you want?" "I want a lot of things, Palpatine. It's up to you whether you want to give them to me or not," Tang Xiao replied quickly. "Say," Palpatine's expression softened slightly. It wasn't because he had figured something out, but because he had begun to calm down and think about the problem from the perspective of interests. Indeed, he and Tang Xiao had already been fighting to the death, so the only thing that could make them sit down and make peace was mutual interests. Tang Xiao smiled slightly and said, "First of all, this war is almost over for us, so I suggest that we sign a 10-year peace agreement." Of course, it's possible, Palpatine agreed immediately. In his opinion, with the size of the Galactic Republic, not to mention 10, 20 years of peace is enough. The longer the time drags on, the greater the gap between the two sides. It just depends on whether he wants to wait that long. After all, if Palpatine had a choice, he would want Tang Xiao to die immediately, and it would be best not to delay for a second. Yet he also knew this was impossible. Both sides were now leaders of massive forces, each dominating their respective territories. Their personal strengths were comparable, and both had begun to avoid direct confrontations. During the raid in the model sector, Palpatine sent John Droga, who was soul-linked with him, to deal with Tang Xiao. What Tang Xiao didn't know was that individuals like Jan Droga were rare and highly valuable. Palpatine was a patient man, willing to wait for 10 years if necessary. He believed that in a decade, his galactic empire would stabilize from its initial chaotic phase and have more time to consolidate its power. By then, he wouldn't just send hundreds of capital ships, he would deploy a super fleet of thousands of battleships to obliterate Dawn Planet in one decisive strike. "Then you must have more than one condition," Palpatine sneered. Tang Xiao continued, "Release the blockade on the Lundili Galaxy, the Cato-Neimoidia Galaxy, and the Balmoral-Neimoidia Galaxy." "Of course, that's not a problem. My fleet will withdraw from these galaxies," Palpatine replied with a laugh. The two sides had entered full bargaining mode, and there was no need for posturing. When it came to negotiations, being direct was best. "I think you misunderstand," Tang Xiao shook his head. "I mean, including the blockade of Lundili's trade route, it must also be lifted." Palpatine's expression turned icy. Tang Xiao's condition revealed his intentions clearly: unblock the Lundili trade routes. Palpatine understood the significance of this demand. The Rendili trade route was an exclusive route managed by Rendili Interstellar Power Company, used to import vast amounts of raw materials from across the galaxy. These materials were then transformed into powerful ships in numerous interstellar shipyards. The Rendili trade route was the lifeline of Rendili Interstellar Power Company. When Rendili Star Dynamics betrayed and joined the Confederation of Independent Systems, Palpatine immediately ordered a blockade of this hyperspace channel. The Republic fleet set up checkpoints, built hyperspace blockers, and completely sealed off the trade route. This move ensured that the massive industrial capacity of Rendili Interstellar Power Company, one of the galaxy's 3 major industrial giants, would not benefit the Principality of Dawn. If the Lundili trade route were reopened, Tang Xiao would gain access to the entire production capacity of Rendili Interstellar Power Company. Although Rendili had been surpassed by Kuat drive yards in subsequent competitions and couldn't compare with Corellian Engineering Corporation, which dominated the civilian ship market, it remained a super-industrial giant with 25,000 years of experience. If Tang Xiao acquired such power, the strength of the Dawn Principality would increase significantly. Thank you to Guardian Calvin Lan for the 1,300 starting coins. And thank you to JFC, a newcomer at the driving school, for the 500 starting coins. Chapter 1731 Dawn Agreement, Part 2, satisfies you. It turns out that this is your plan. Palpatine's expression gradually became ferocious. The 10-year peace agreement is just a cover. What you want is to completely absorb the industrial production capacity of Rendeli Interstellar Power Company. The conditions are here, Your Majesty the Emperor. From now on, it depends on your decision. Tang Xiao sneered coldly. Do you think you can compete with me even if you get Rendeli Interstellar Company? Palpatine asked. How do you know if you don't try? Tang Xiao stared into Palpatine's eyes. In this galaxy, there are only a handful of people who can do this. Anyway, that will be 10 years later. Your current problem, if not solved, will really be a big trouble. Despite his words, Tang Xiao knew that if the Rendili trade route remained closed, it would be a significant issue for his Dawn Principality as well. Both sides were at an impasse. The blockade of the Rendili trade route was not something the current Dawn Principality could break through. This route ran from the core circle of the Milky Way to the outer star region, a very extensive route. Opening this route would mean moving the fleet from the outer ring star area all the way to the core circle. If this blockade remained, the 600 billion people of Rendili planet and the more than 3,600 large-scale interstellar shipyards of Rendili Interstellar Power Company would be stuck in the core circle of the Milky Way, surrounded by the Galactic Empire, unable to exert any influence. Even if the Rendili galaxy was not captured in the future, in just a few years, these interstellar shipyards would become outdated and useless. If the Rendili trade channel could be opened, specific ships would patrol it. Once a hyperspace blocker was detected, it would be destroyed immediately. Such ships already existed. Therefore, in the subsequent reconstruction work of the Dawn Principality, the industrial capabilities and population of Rendili Interstellar Power Company were crucial. Without these resources, even if the Galactic Empire stopped developing, the Principality of Dawn would not be able to catch up, even if given another 20 years. The conditions and difficulties of both parties were now clear. There was no need to hide them. Tang Xiao and Palpatine talked alone for nearly an hour and finally reached an agreement on the relevant conditions. The next negotiation was left to the Deputy Speaker of the Galactic Republic, Masa Meda, and the Prime Minister of the Dawn Principality, Francis Underwood. On August 9, 20 BBY, the two parties formally signed an agreement. According to the agreement, the Principality of Dawn surrendered to the Galactic Republic, or rather, the current government of Coruscant, headed by Palpatine, and accepted Palpatine's leadership. Palpatine recognized the political system of the Principality of Dawn, acknowledged Tang Xiao's status as the Grand Duke of Dawn, and recognized the rule of the Principality of Dawn over all existing jurisdictions. The Principality of Dawn could retain its own army and military command rights, as well as legislative power, but it also needed to recognize the constitution of Palpatine's current government. According to this clause, the planet Rendili was recognized within the jurisdiction of the Dawn Principality. The two sides would carry out trade exchanges and establish an extensive bilateral trade mechanism for mutual benefit. Under this provision, the Rendili trade channel would be liberalized. Next, there were discussions about cooperative development, scientific research, and other collaborative efforts. Neither Tang Xiao nor Palpatine could afford to overlook these details. Neither Xiao nor Palpatine expected the clauses of their agreement to actually come into effect. To put it bluntly, this agreement meant that Palpatine would pay a price in exchange for the nominal surrender of the Dawn Principality. In return, Palpatine would gain the political achievements he desired, survive the Model SC, Ketor raid, and weather the crisis of two disastrous defeats in the Yagodal planet battle, allowing him to launch his plan to become emperor. Tang Xiao, on the other hand, would gain substantial benefits from this agreement, making it mutually beneficial. Once the treaty was officially signed, it was named the Dawn Agreement. The signing of the Dawn Agreement held great significance. Firstly, it was regarded as a separate peace agreement between the Principality of Dawn and Palpatine, effectively sidelining Count Dooku and the Confederation of Independent Systems. This maneuver rendered Count Dooku, who had just assumed the chairmanship of the Confederation of Independent Systems, a clown-like figure. In essence, Count Dooku was betrayed by Tang Xiao. Regardless of the circumstances, as the most powerful military entity of the Confederation of Independent Systems and its second-in-command, the sudden surrender was a massive blow to the Confederacy. It could even be described as a stretch. Even if the Principality of Dawn did not surrender to the Galactic Republic, the current situation was that the Confederation of Independent Systems was located on the eastern border of the Milky Way, while the Principality of Dawn was on the southwest border. Military cooperation and contact between the two sides were impossible. However, the political impact of such a result was still too significant. This would cause many planets that had joined the Confederation of Independent Systems to believe that the war had failed, leading them to break away from the Confederation and seek their own paths. Consequently, the Confederation of Independent Systems would face a wave of turmoil, and the withdrawal of many planets would further weaken their strength. After resolving the issue with the Principality of Dawn, Palpatine could redirect all the fleets in the direction of the Principality of Dawn to the east, continuing to strengthen the offensive against the Confederation of Independent Systems. Combining these factors, the pressure on Count Dooku would be enormous. Despite this, Palpatine and Tang Xiao immediately began their respective actions once the agreement came into effect. First, the Galactic Republic relaxed its blockade of the Rendili trade lanes and shut down the billions of hyperspace blockers along the way. The Dawn Principality then sent out spacecraft to recover or destroy all these hyperspace blockers. A large-scale relocation of Rendili Interstellar Power Company's materials, especially the more than 3,600 interstellar docks, began immediately. Additionally, a massive immigration operation was launched, assembling almost all available spaceships to gradually relocate the 600 billion people on the planet Rendili to the outer ring star area. All of this was done swiftly, as there was no guarantee that Palpatine would not make underhanded moves later. It was best to take this opportunity to move Rendili's assets out quickly. Palpatine had the same intention. On the second day after the treaty came into effect, August 10th, 20 BBY, he took advantage of Bail Organa and others' submission of the 2,000 people's letter to convene a plenary meeting of the Parliament. He then directly announced that the Galactic Republic would be reorganized into the Galactic Empire. In this process, the Dawn Agreement played an important role in his ascension to Emperor. In the end, everyone got what they needed. Chapter 1732, The Rise of the Galactic Empire, Part 1. Tang Xiao! You betrayed me. Count Dooku's roar echoed through the communication room. In the holographic projection, Count Dooku, with his gray hair and regal velvet cloak, appeared as majestic as ever. However, the anger on his face was unmistakable, shattering his usual indifference and elegance. Betrayal? What I don't quite understand is why you think I betrayed you, Count Dooku. Tang Xiao responded calmly, looking at the lion-like old man before him. You made peace with Palpatine behind my back. What is this if not betrayal? Count Dooku roared. Regarding the Dawn Agreement, Palpatine's propaganda claimed that the Principality of Dawn had surrendered. Meanwhile, the Confederation of Independent Systems believed that the Principality of Dawn had left to negotiate peace with the Galactic Republic independently. Tang Xiao sighed, his tone helpless. Planet Dawn has reached its limit. In the previous two-pronged attack by the Galactic Republic, they deployed over 1,000 capital ships. It's a miracle we managed to repel them. Their warships even bombarded Planet Dawn. That is no excuse for your betrayal, Count Dooku retorted angrily. Our fleet is currently resisting the main fleet of the Galactic Republic on planet Salakami. Your betrayal could lead to our defeat there. I have done everything I can, Count Dooku, Tang Xiao said. But if we do not seize the opportunity of this miraculous victory, Planet Dawn will face catastrophe next. Do you think Palpatine will spare you for this betrayal? Count Dooku demanded. There is no room for another under his throne of power. You told me this yourself. I have no intention of truly reconciling with Palpatine. This is merely a 10-year peace agreement. I promise you, although I can no longer fight on the front lines, I will still provide you with assistance. As I mentioned before, I am facilitating the Given People's immigration to planet Lothal. They will build factories and shipyards there, strengthening your resistance movement. Tang Xiao explained. Your words are meaningless. I won't let you go, Tang Xiao. You traitor. Count Dooku gritted his teeth. I'm sorry, Count Dooku. Tang Xiao sighed again. Count Dooku abruptly ended the communication. A sneer appeared at the corner of Tang Xiao's mouth. He looked at the dark screen and murmured, That's why. You will always be the loser. 20 BBY, August 10th. This day is known as Empire Day. On this day, the Galactic Republic ceased to exist, replaced by the First Galactic Empire. Palpatine, the former Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, became the head of the First Galactic Empire and was crowned Emperor in a grand enthronement ceremony. He would be the first Emperor of the First Galactic Empire, though no one knew at that moment that he would also be the last. In almost one day, everything in the Galactic Republic underwent earth-shattering changes. To ascend the throne as the supreme and glorious new emperor, a riot called the Empire erupted across almost the entire former Galactic Republic. Everything related to the Republic was removed almost overnight, even those things that were easily associated with it. This was a premeditated and organized action. The former capital of the Galactic Republic, the Coruscant sector, was renamed the Imperial Region. The planet Coruscant was renamed the Imperial Center, and Galactic City, the capital of Coruscant, was renamed the Imperial City. From this day forward, the planet Coruscant, which had served as the capital of the Galactic Republic and maintained the operation of the entire Republic for 25,000 years, became a relic of history. Coruscant, a planet that once symbolized the glory of the Republic, ceased to exist in its former capacity. A complete reorganization took place across all major institutions of the Galactic Republic. The Galactic Parliament was restructured into the Imperial Parliament. All members were required to swear loyalty to the new Emperor Palpatine and the Galactic Empire, or face immediate expulsion from the Imperial Parliament. During this transition, more than 300 of the over 2,000 congressmen who had signed the petition were arrested on charges of anti-imperial crimes. Not all of these congressmen were part of Bail Organa's faction. Many were originally loyal to Palpatine, but believed that the recent series of failures necessitated reforms within the Galactic Republic. These individuals were also arrested without explanation. Among the arrested were the fiery Fangza and Pantora Planet Congressman Papanoida. Fangza, in particular, refused to submit, cursing Palpatine even as he was imprisoned, and ultimately died in custody. Some other congressmen who had signed the petition managed to use their connections to navigate the political landscape, expressing their obedience and congratulations to Palpatine and the Galactic Empire, thus ensuring their survival. Notable among these were Mon Mothma and Bana Brem. Bail Organa, however, remained unaffected. This outcome surprised even Palpatine, who had expected Bail Organa to be one of the most active dissenters. To Palpatine's astonishment, Bail Organa had not signed the petition at all. Palpatine summoned Bail Organa to his office and mocked him, claiming that his so-called faith and persistence were nothing but a joke. Bail Organa endured the humiliation and expressed deep regret for his previous actions, admitting that his vision had been short-sighted and that he had failed to recognize the Emperor's talents and plans. He then offered to resign and return to his homeplanet of Alderaan to retire. However, Palpatine rejected this proposal and insisted that Bail Organa remain in the Imperial Council, praising him publicly. Palpatine believed that showcasing the transformation of Bail Organa, once a core figure of the opposition, would serve as a model for others. The reorganized Imperial Parliament, however, had essentially lost its function as a legislative body and was reduced to a mere decoration. Note, strictly speaking, the planet Lothal should be translated as Lothal to distinguish it from the planet Lorda. However, since Rise of the Rebels has been translated this way, it will remain as such. Chapter 733, The Rise of the Galactic Empire, Part 2. Simultaneously with the changes in the Parliament, the Galactic Capital underwent extensive renovations and is now called the Imperial Capital. All the statues in the surrounding squares, which once honored the martyrs of the Galactic Republic, were torn down and destroyed. In their place, numerous statues of Emperor Palpatine have been erected. Walking through the square, one cannot escape the feeling of being watched by Palpatine, and indeed, surveillance cameras have been installed within these statues. As the Senate was reorganized into the Imperial Senate, the former Galactic Republic military also underwent drastic reforms. The Supreme Strategic Command of the Galactic Republic was disbanded, and the entire Republic military was reorganized into three distinct branches: the Imperial Navy, the Imperial Army, and the Stormtroopers. These three departments report directly to Emperor Palpatine and operate independently of each other, eliminating the need for an overarching command structure. The Supreme Strategic Command had originally been established to coordinate the chaotic Republic Army during the previous war. At that time, the Republic's military included various overlapping forces, such as the Fighter Force, Battleship Force, Space-Based Force, and the Grand Army of the Republic, resulting in a confusing and bloated structure. With the establishment of the Galactic Empire, a complete overhaul was necessary, starting with the military. The Imperial Navy is now responsible for space operations, while the Imperial Army handles surface operations on planets. The Stormtroopers, reorganized from the Clone Army, have become an elite force directly under the Emperor's command. To ensure their combat effectiveness, Palpatine ordered that the rapid one-year growth period of Spartae clones be slightly extended to produce more stable soldiers. Following the separation of the Clone Army from the Imperial Army, the latter began preparing for widespread conscription of ordinary citizens, with recruitment criteria favoring human races. Non-human races are almost entirely excluded from this opportunity. The first phase of the Imperial Army's recruitment plan aims to enlist 5 billion soldiers, with plans for further recruitment and the construction of additional barracks and training bases in the future. Initially, all military officials were temporarily retained in their respective departments. However, a few weeks after the establishment of the Empire, Palpatine, having stabilized the situation, began targeting military personnel. He launched a purge campaign, removing or arresting officers deemed untrustworthy and replacing them with those absolutely loyal to him. This purge also saw the removal of families with strong military traditions, as Palpatine viewed them as obstacles to his absolute control of the army. The Intelligence Department of the Republic, previously a chaotic and inefficient entity with 4 different intelligence departments, was also reorganized. These departments had been repeatedly outmaneuvered by the spies of the Principality of Dawn during the war, leading to missed opportunities. In the reorganization, the 4 intelligence departments were unified into the Imperial Intelligence Agency, led by Armand Izard, the former head of the SBI. Additionally, the Committee to Preserve the Republic, Compar, a loyal supporter of Palpatine, was renamed the Preservation of the New Order, Comnor. The basic functions of the organization remained unchanged, continuing to promote the glory of the Empire and the Emperor in every corner of the galaxy. The Republic Youth League was renamed the Palpatine Youth League, or the Imperial Youth League, cultivating fanatical followers of the Emperor among the younger generation. It is worth mentioning that the power of the Committee for the Maintenance of the New Order, Comnor, in the Empire has grown immensely. They have control over almost every matter in the galaxy, intervening in anything considered disloyal to the Emperor or detrimental to the Empire. As a violent organization directly under the Emperor, the Stormtroopers often cooperated with Comnor to arrest people, and no one dared to stop them. A branch called the Imperial Security Bureau, ISB, was established under the New Order Maintenance Committee. This agency, directly responsible to Emperor Palpatine, was mainly used to check and balance the Imperial Intelligence Agency. It functioned as a secret police organization, monitoring all parts of the Empire and investigating and arresting potential rebels. Former Republic Admiral Wolf Yularen was forced to resign as an admiral when the ISB was established and entered the ISB as a colonel. This was because Admiral Yularen sympathized with the Jedi Order and had a good relationship with the Jedi in previous battles. Relevant personnel believed he should not continue to remain in the military. However, after review, it was determined that he was indeed loyal to the Galactic Empire, so he had the opportunity to enter the ISB. Colonel Yularen later relied on his outstanding abilities and absolute loyalty to the Empire to be constantly promoted, eventually becoming the Deputy Director of the Imperial Security Bureau, a position of high authority. This is a story for later. In a series of adjustments and reforms, the Imperial Security Bureau even extended its reach to the military. They installed a large number of security advisors in the military fleet to ensure consistency between the military and the imperial government. This move was very effective, ensuring the loyalty of the Imperial Army to Emperor Palpatine in the days that followed. After stabilizing the situation on Coruscant, now called the center of the Empire, Palpatine began a deterrent operation across the entire Empire. First, there was a large-scale construction project to transform the former Jedi Temple into the Emperor's Palace. The former Speaker's Palace was also expanded on a large scale, resulting in the magnificent Imperial Palace. He then organized stormtroopers to conduct military parades everywhere, even dispatching the garrison fleet from the center of the Empire to show off his power in various places. This move was necessary because the Empire had just been established and its foundation was unstable, with conspiracies and rebellions arising almost from the first day. The stormtroopers and the newly formed Imperial Navy carried out a bloody suppression of all planets that might rebel. This is why Palpatine signed an agreement with Tang Xiao so readily and was willing to take huge risks to open up the Lundili trade route. Compared to the original plot, the Galactic Empire, established more than half a year earlier, was unstable in all aspects. Palpatine needed to free his hands from the frontline battlefield as soon as possible to stabilize the situation in his own backyard. The establishment of the Galactic Empire has been precarious from the beginning, and the galaxy will move towards an unknown and crazy future. End of this chapter. Chapter 17:34, 6 months later, and Taintuer. 6 months had passed since the establishment of the First Galactic Empire. With the new order in place, the galaxy had entered a period of relative stability. However, beneath this veneer of calm, a terrifying storm brewed, threatening to engulf everything. The edge of the galaxy, planet Naboo. An Imperial-class Star Destroyer hovered in the outer orbit of Naboo, floating quietly and overlooking the beautiful blue planet. This ship, known as the Archon-class Star Destroyer, was similar to the Knight-class Star Destroyer that had seen action on many battlefields. The primary difference was the addition of a hangar platform capable of carrying 72 V-Wing Alpha Holy Light fighters. After the Galactic Empire was established, the Archon class was renamed the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, becoming a symbol of the Empire. This name change was not just cosmetic. It represented underlying political and economic struggles, which will be discussed later. At this moment, the Imperial-class Star Destroyer was in an unusual state. It had neither launched fighter jets for patrols nor entered a planet's synchronous orbit to provide direct deterrence, a common tactic used by the Empire's fleet in the past few months. Instead, it floated quietly in the outer orbit, observing the planet like a silent sentinel. Naboo Palace, Theed City. Queen Jamilia, that Star Destroyer is here again, reported the sheriff to Queen Jamilia, who sat on her throne in the Naboo Palace. Is there anything strange about it? Queen Jamilia inquired. No, it just remains motionless in our outer orbit. It doesn't even respond to spacecraft that fly by it, the sheriff replied, shaking his head. It's been like this for the past 6 months. This is the 4th time it has appeared. Since there is no change, we should ignore it. In this sensitive period, we cannot afford to offend the imperial authorities, as it may bring disaster upon us, Queen Jamilia advised. You are aware that in the past 6 months, hundreds of planets have been punished by the Empire. These punishments have so far been limited to orbital bombardments destroying cities, but none of us know when the first planet will be completely annihilated. Yes, Your Majesty, the sheriff responded, bowing his head. Aboard the Star Destroyer, the sound of heavy breathing emanated from beneath a black, fully enclosed mask. The mask obscured the wearer's face entirely, with the eye positions appearing as cold metal. This imposing figure, standing about 2 meters tall, was clad in jet-black alloy armor with a life support device on his chest, a black cloak added to his menacing presence. This was Darth Vader. Since the establishment of the Galactic Empire, Darth Vader had appeared suddenly at Emperor Palpatine's side, personally leading fleets to crush resistance across the galaxy. In just 6 months, his hands were stained with the blood of countless victims, and he had destroyed hundreds of cities. The number of innocent civilians affected by his actions numbered in the hundreds of millions. Darth Vader was ruthless, executing Emperor Palpatine's orders with unwavering precision, spreading fear and oppression throughout the Galactic Empire. Many speculated about his origins, but no one knew the truth. He seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and Palpatine trusted him implicitly, entrusting him with command of the fleet. In the past 6 months, the sight of his black armor and the sound of his mechanical breathing had become synonymous with terror. Heavy breathing had almost become synonymous with the terror of the Galactic Empire. At this moment, Darth Vader stood on the bridge, gazing through the porthole at the blue planet Naboo. He remained silent, his presence marked only by his ominous breathing. An officer in a gray military uniform approached. The Navy of the Galactic Empire had completely transitioned to this gray attire, a stark contrast to the previous uniforms of the Galactic Republic. The officer spoke respectfully. "Lord Vader, every time we pass by on a mission, we always stop at the planet Naboo. Why? Should we blow up the city of Sid to make it easier for those who dare to resist us?" Without a word, Darth Vader extended his hand. The powerful force instantly grabbed the officer by the neck, lifting him into the air. The expressionless metal mask turned, its cold eyes penetrating the officer's soul. "Strengthen the security control on the planet Naboo. There must be no mistakes. If anything goes wrong, I will twist your head off." Vader's voice was icy. The officer's legs kicked frantically, but he couldn't break free from Vader's iron grip. As his struggle weakened, Vader finally released him, sending him crashing to the ground a few meters away. The officer clutched his neck, gasping for breath, feeling the relief of life returning to his body. He quickly responded, Yes, I will arrange it right away." Darth Vader turned back to the planet Naboo, motionless and silent. The bridge was deathly quiet. No one dared to breathe loudly. The only sound was Vader's eerie, mechanical breathing. After several minutes, Vader suddenly turned around, waved his hand, and commanded, "Let's go! On to the next target." "Yes, Lord Vader," the crew responded in unison. "Oh? Is that so, R2? That terrible Star Destroyer is gone?" C-3PO, a golden ceremonial robot, looked at the clear sky and asked the short navigation robot at his feet. R2-D2's language module indicator light flashed as it beeped and whistled in its robotic language. "Oh, that's great!" C-3PO exclaimed, walking toward the interior of the manor with small steps. "I must inform the Master that the Star Destroyer is gone. The crisis on the planet Naboo has been resolved once again, and we are safe." Inside the manor, several women were tending to a sleeping young woman on a soft, wide bed. This woman was extraordinarily beautiful. Her slightly thin cheeks were pale, but her features were exquisite and graceful. Her eyes were closed, but her long eyelashes trembled slightly with each breath, hinting at the beauty they would reveal when opened. Even more surprising was her highly bulging belly. She was pregnant and close to giving birth. This sleeping beauty was Padme Amidala, the former Naboo senator and the secret wife of the former Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker. At the end of May last year, the Galactic Republic underwent drastic changes. The Jedi Order was accused of rebelling against the Republic, and it was confirmed that Master Yoda had attempted to assassinate Chancellor Palpatine. Order 66 was issued to kill all Jedi Knights, and the person who led the troops to slaughter the Jedi Temple was none other than Anakin Skywalker. Such a series of blows left Padme Amidala exhausted, both physically and mentally. After a futile confrontation with Anakin, she had reached her limit both physically and emotionally. Within a few days, news of Anakin Skywalker's death spread. While visiting his mother on the planet Naboo, Anakin was killed by the Sith Lord Death Angel, who had suddenly appeared. For Padme Amidala, this was another devastating blow. At the subsequent funeral, overwhelmed by the grief and weakened by her condition, Padme fainted and has not woken up since. Padme's close friend and political colleague, Bail Organa, sought out the best doctors in the galaxy to examine her. The diagnosis revealed that while Padme's physical condition was not severe, Her unusual pregnancy had drained much of her life force. More troubling was the deep despair she harbored in her heart, having lost her will to live. This despair kept her in a state of unconsciousness, as she had become completely disillusioned with the world, the galaxy, and the Galactic Republic. She could not bear the thought of facing reality upon waking and had nearly given up entirely. After the establishment of the Galactic Empire, Padme was stripped of her senatorial status. Her most loyal maid, Dome, took over as the Counselor of Naboo. However, the Imperial Parliament had become a mere formality, with members only there to applaud Emperor Palpatine's resolutions. Dome frequently returned to the remote and beautiful manor on Naboo to care for Padme, whom she still regarded as her master, regardless of her political status. One day, the etiquette robot C-3PO staggered in and announced, "Dear Miss Dome, the Star Destroyer has left. I think Naboo is safe again." "Oh!" But before he could finish, the roar of two V-Wing Alpha Holy Light fighter jets passing by at low altitude interrupted him. The strong airflow caused the trees in the manor to sway violently. "Nowhere in the entire Empire is safe now, C-3PO," Dome sighed. "Anyone who disobeys the Empire's orders faces immediate and terrible retaliation, even for the smallest infractions, like unpaid taxes." "But that Imperial-class Star Destroyer," C-3PO began. Dome waved her hand dismissively. "Those ships are just the Galactic Empire's way of showing off its power. They serve as constant reminders that the Empire can destroy our planets at any time." "I understand," C-3PO said, lowering his head. "The Empire's surveillance of Naboo is increasing, which means that despite our respect, Palpatine still believes we haven't done enough." Dome sighed again. "I will try to gather some gifts to present to His Majesty the Emperor." She walked outside the manor, with C-3PO following behind. Dome looked up at the clear sky, squinting against the dazzling sunlight. She raised her hand to shield her eyes and watched the Imperial fighter jet circling in the distance. At that moment, her communicator rang. She answered it to find an Imperial officer on the other end. Judging by his badge, he appeared to be a colonel, but he was still arrogant and rude, despite Dome's status as a member of the planet's parliament. "I would like to inform you that, by the Emperor's permission, the next phase of taxes on Naboo can be applied to maintain the status quo. This is a great opportunity. You must prepare all the application materials within today and call me. If the review passes, you should be able to live a good life." The officer laughed coldly. Dome immediately understood and responded quickly. "Rest assured, our application materials will be delivered within today. We are very grateful for your generosity and will also offer you a small token of appreciation. We hope that during the review, you will... Then we'll have to see how the application materials you submitted are doing," the officer sneered before closing the communication. Dome breathed a sigh of relief and turned to C-3PO behind him. "Although I don't know why, the Empire's financial controls on our planet Naboo are relatively lenient. This is somewhat good news for us. Compared to the taxes paid by our entire planet, satisfying the selfish desires of those officials is insignificant." "But the Empire's surveillance of Naboo is also increasing," C-3PO pointed out. "Looking at both aspects together, maybe the situation isn't so bad," Dome said, visibly more relaxed. She sent a message on her communicator to arrange things while continuing. "The planet Earth was released a month ago because they failed to collect enough taxes. They were punished." Her voice trembled as she continued. "Palpatine said at the meeting that since the planet Earth only paid 85% of the taxes, it meant that only 85% of the people on the planet were loyal. So, the next day, Darth Vader's fleet bombed the planet Earth, destroying 3 cities and killing tens of millions of people." At that moment, a maid suddenly ran out of the manor, her face filled with urgency. "Lord Padme, she is going to give birth." Chapter 1735, The Twins of Destiny. "What? Lady Padme is about to give birth?" Dome exclaimed, rushing inside the manor. "This is truly a surprise, such a surprise," C-3PO added, swaying as he followed. The navigation robot R2-D2 beeped and accelerated past C-3PO, heading straight for Padme Amidala's bedroom. At the door, R2-D2 stopped abruptly, blocking the entrance. C-3PO collided with R2-D2 but couldn't get in. "Please make way, thank you, R2," C-3PO requested. However, R2-D2 ignored him and continued to block the door, emitting a series of beeps in robot language. "Oh, okay, I know it may not be appropriate for us to go in, but I just want to express my concern for the Master," C-3PO said. "Beep, beep, beep," R2-D2 responded. "Okay, I understand. Then we will guard the door," C-3PO conceded, stepping aside to stand guard. However, R2-D2 entered the room without hesitation. "R2, you can't go in. We should guard the door," C-3PO protested. But R2-D2 ignored him and went straight to Padme's bedside. "Oh, well, at least I can guard the door myself," C-3PO said, taking a few steps back to continue his vigil. Inside, 3 medical care robots, designed with feminine features, spoke in gentle electronic voices as they performed their duties to deliver the baby. Padme Amidala remained in a coma. "A boy, very healthy," one of the medical care robots announced softly. Dome took the baby boy from the robot's hands, carefully wrapping him in a swaddle with just the right elasticity. Her face glowed with maternal love. Lady Padme said, "If it's a boy, then he should be named Luke," Dome said, her voice choking up as she spoke the now almost taboo surname. Luke Skywalker." "A girl, very healthy," another medical care robot announced, quickly swaddling a baby girl and handing her to Dome. "Leia." "If it's a girl, then her name is Leia," Dome said, tears streaming down her face as she held the 2 babies. Only she, who had been with Padme Amidala, understood the significance of these names. They represented Padme's entire life and world. No one noticed R2-D2 beside the bed, its electronic eyes flashing continuously. It used its short body to get under the table, spread out the antenna on its head, and began sending messages. Southwest of the Milky Way, Outer Rim, Endor System, Dawn Planet. Darth Malthael suddenly opened his eyes, golden light flashing within them. The powerful force echoed from the depths of the Force, but had no impact on the real world. Looking at the communicator in his hand, a cold smile appeared on Darth Malthael's lips. He slowly stood up, and the withered, black land around him seemed to be reborn. Green grass and shady trees sprouted from the ground, and even the black earth seemed to come to life again. A breeze blew by, and Darth Malthael's figure disappeared. Moments later, a Lambda-class shuttle rose into the sky and vanished. The inner ring of the Milky Way, the planet Alderaan. Queen Breha Organa of Alderaan sat on the bed, holding her baby girl in her arms, a loving smile on her face. "What a lovely girl. What's her name?" Breha Organa asked. "Leia Amidala Skywalker," Dome replied with a smile. Leia had inherited Padme Amidala's surname, while Luke was simply called Luke Skywalker. "In her, I can feel the same vitality as Senator Padme. She will definitely become a kind, sunny, and brave woman like her mother," Counselor Bail Organa of Alderaan nodded. "It's just a pity that the situation in the galaxy is so dire. The Empire is very serious now. Perhaps the surnames Amidala and Skywalker will bring her trouble," Breha Organa said as she stood up from the bed. "For the past 6 months, I have been pretending to be pregnant for this day. We all understand the significance of this girl. Please rest assured, Senator Dome, we will take good care of Leia. She will be temporarily named Leia Organa, and we will treat her as our daughter," Bail Organa added. "Oh, she's our biological daughter, right? Little cutie," Breha Organa teased the baby girl in her arms. "This is also the best choice. On behalf of Lady Padme, I extend my most sincere gratitude to you," Dome said, bowing deeply to the Organa couple with the highest courtesy. "This is what we should do, Senator Dome." Bail Organa quickly helped Dome up. "We will take good care of Senator Padme's daughter until she recovers. I look forward to seeing her again one day." "We all do," Dome said with a relaxed smile. For the past 6 months, she had been under constant pressure from the Empire, but she was enjoying this rare moment of relaxation and warmth. However, the terror of the Empire soon haunted her heart again. She lowered her head and said, "I have to leave. I can't let the Empire's spies find out that I came here privately. They might use it as an excuse to accuse us of plotting against the Empire." "I understand, Senator Dome. May the Force be with you," Bail Organa nodded and replied. Dome returned to her shuttle and entered the cockpit to pilot the spacecraft herself. She took a deep breath, turned back to the cabin, and asked, "Are we going to the planet Tatooine?" An old voice came from the other side of the cabin. "Too dangerous, the planet Tatooine. Go to the planet Dagobah. You won't be discovered by the dark side there." Dome pressed a few buttons on the navigation system, frowning. Isn't this planet on the Milky Way star map? Deleted, planet coordinates, the old voice said. I can navigate for you. Let's take off. Yes, Dome said respectfully and started the spacecraft engine. With a flash of white light, a Lambda-class shuttle left the hyperspace channel and appeared outside the planet Naboo. Immediately, several radar beams scanned the shuttle, but it quickly transmitted the Empire's identification code, temporarily avoiding detection. Darth Malthel hovered the shuttle in the outer orbit of the planet. He did not land, but stood up and looked at the blue planet through the porthole. Is it too late? Darth Malthel's face was extremely cold. He raised his hand and waved, and the extremely powerful force of the dark side instantly submerged into the galaxy. He closed his eyes and sensed everything through the force. It took him several minutes before he opened his eyes again and took a deep breath. He didn't notice anything. Are you protecting them, Force? Darth Malthel gritted his teeth, his eyes full of anger and murderous intent. You can protect them for a while, but you can't protect them for a lifetime. These twins are destined to be mine. Mine. Sir, what are your plans for coming to the planet Naboo? The voice of the Imperial Sheriff came through the communication. Get out! Darth Malthel, in an extremely bad mood, roared angrily, and the power of the dark side directly knocked the Sheriff out of another spaceship in the distance. Yes, just following your orders. I'll get out of here. The Sheriff quickly apologized and drove the spacecraft away. He did not dare to question the shuttle, knowing that those who were active in the dark side of the Empire behaved in such a way without any sense of violation. The Lambda-class shuttle turned its bow, restarted the hyperspace engine, and disappeared into space in an instant. Have the Intelligence Department report to me immediately about the situation of the Owen Lars family, Darth Malthel commanded. In the shuttle, Darth Malthel connected to the Intelligence Department's communication, speaking through gritted teeth. Keep me informed of any activity on Tatooine. Even if there's an extra fly in the Owen Lars household, I want to know. We have agents tracking the Owen Lars family 24 hours a day, but so far, there is nothing unusual, replied Mrs. M., the Minister of Military Intelligence, from the other end of the communication. Useless. You can't find a Sharad Het, and you don't know what's happening with Owen Lars. What's the point of having you around? Darth Malthel roared. Mrs. M. quickly responded, I'm sorry, sir, but there is indeed nothing unusual about the Owen Lars family. We are also sending additional manpower to investigate the man named Asharad Het, and we believe we will have results soon. Tatooine is only so big. Even if you have to turn it upside down, find him, and keep a 24-hour surveillance on Owen Lars. Darth Malthel demanded loudly. He then paused and added, No, immediately remove the surveillance on the Owen Lars family. Leave completely. Just ensure he does not leave the planet. I understand. Are you saying that if we watch too closely, the other party will not make any changes? I will make arrangements now, Mrs. M said. As soon as possible, Darth Malthel replied with a sullen face. Sir. Mrs. M hesitated, seeing that Darth Malthel had relaxed a little. Why are we following Owen Lars? He will adopt a baby. This baby is crucial, Darth Malthel said. Understood, Mrs. M nodded in response. She then reported, By the way, sir, we also found something on Tatooine. If it's not a Sharad Het, don't bother me. Darth Malthel interrupted her impatiently. Also, is there any update on the situation on Alderaan? Mrs. M shook her head. No, the intelligence personnel of the Galactic Empire are on very tight guard now. Although we have signed the peace agreement, the Empire still has not opened entry to citizens of our Principality of Dawn. It is very troublesome to infiltrate. But at least for now, we're told there's nothing noteworthy about Alderaan either. Let your intelligence personnel continue to lurk. They are not of use for the time being, but they will be of great use in the future, Darth Malthel said. Just pay attention to the news on Alderaan. The birth of the Queen's daughter is big news and cannot go unannounced. Mrs. M paused and said, Well, this is indeed true. News of the pregnancy of Queen Breha Organa of Alderaan came out a few months ago. Please wait a moment. She paused again as if to receive information, then said, I have confirmed, sir. Queen Breha did give birth to a daughter. Just now, Breha Organa announced that this daughter's name is Leia Organa, and she will become Princess of Alderaan. Darth Malthael's expression finally softened a little, and he said coldly, I know. Continue minimal monitoring of Alderaan, as long as there are no major problems. Don't alert them. Yes, I obey. Mrs. That M lowered her head and responded. After Darth Malthael closed the communication, Mrs. M breathed a sigh of relief. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. The pressure of a phone call with the Grand Duke of Dawn was immense, and the dark side force he wielded could overwhelm almost anyone. Recently, Darth Malthael no longer concealed his power, but displayed it openly. Ma'am, do we need to take further action regarding the Jedi on Tatooine? Another intelligence officer asked. Mrs. M shook her head. You heard the Grand Duke. He is not interested in other matters on Tatooine. Jing Fang is just a Jedi Knight who escaped the Empire's pursuit. Although he was born on the Dawn planet, he currently seems to have no intention of returning. As long as he does not do anything detrimental to us, let him be. Record his information for review at any time. Understood, the intelligence officer nodded. Then, Asharad Het, continue the investigation. Include the Jawas and Tusken Raiders on the planet Tatooine. Leave no stone unturned. You must find him for me. Mrs. M's face grew serious. With all due respect, madam, this name isn't very well known. It seems it has never appeared in the galaxy's records. Is there any point in looking for him? The intelligence officer was still puzzled. Mrs. M replied in a deep voice, I don't know the exact significance, but have you ever seen the Grand Duke personally come to capture such specific information? Even when the Galactic Empire launched another attack on the planet Salukami a month ago, the Grand Duke didn't care at all. That should tell you the importance of this name. Now go. Yes, ma'am. I'll make arrangements right away. Chapter 7136, Relocation of Rendili Planet. After the Galactic Empire released the Rendili trade route, it was almost immediately utilized to full capacity. Countless spaceships, loaded with daily necessities and various raw materials, entered the Rendili system. After unloading their cargo, these ships were modified to transport immigrants back. During this period, almost all available spaceships in the Dawn Principality were dispatched, moving the planet Rendili almost non-stop. The interstellar docks used by Rendili Interstellar Power Company were relatively flexible and could be folded and packed. When packed, these interstellar docks formed spherical aircraft with diameters ranging from 500 meters to 2,000 meters. Once unfolded, their size increased by more than 5 times. These packed interstellar docks were equipped with large external hyperspace engines, allowing them to enter the hyperspace channel and travel to the Principality of Dawn, where they were then organized. Tang Xiao allocated super-industrial zones in each of the 3 major star sectors of the Dawn Principality, Model Star, Haven Star, and Seth Vena Star, to house these interstellar shipyards. Meanwhile, those interstellar shipyards that had not yet been packed continued to operate. With the opening of the Rendili trade channel and the influx of vast amounts of raw materials, these shipyards were finally able to start construction. The Victory II class Star Destroyer was officially put into mass production and included in the Navy of the Principality of Dawn. This Star Destroyer, 900 meters long, had a hull much wider than that of the Victory I class. It was equipped with 20 multifunction turbo-laser cannons, 20 XX-9 heavy twin turbo-laser cannons, 10 heavy ion cannons, and 10 tractor beams. It could also carry 24 light carrier-based aircraft, usually the Acolyte multifunctional drone. If equipped with heavy fighters like the Ghost or Viking fighters, the pylons needed to be replaced, reducing the number to 16. The biggest change in the Victory II was the division of the hangar platform into 2, one on each side. When fighters needed to take off, the 2 thick armor plates would open up and down into a V shape. This structure allowed the Victory II class to launch fighters even during intense artillery battles, without worrying about the carrier-based aircraft being attacked during takeoff and landing, or the hangar platform becoming a weak point in the battleship structure. Additionally, the Victory II class Star Destroyer could carry 1,600 Marines and 30 Scorpion tanks for ground combat. In the Navy of the Principality of Dawn, The Victory II-class Star Destroyer was a rare, multifunctional, comprehensive battleship. In other words, if a conflict broke out somewhere but did not require a task force, one or two Victory II-class Star Destroyers could be sent. Even in large-scale fleet operations, the Victory II could produce excellent results with its powerful firepower. In the army of the Principality of Dawn, the only other comprehensive battleship was the Behemoth-class battlecruiser. However, compared to the cost-effective Victory II class, which cost only 50 million credit points, the expensive Behemoth class had cost issues and the powerful Yamato cannon. Thus, the Navy of the Dawn Principality was not yet luxurious enough to deploy the Behemoth class for solo missions. The planet Rendili was continuously starting production and relocating simultaneously, striving to become part of the Principality of Dawn as soon as possible. The actual controller of the planet, the patriarch of the Ulan family, Bangila Ulan, also demonstrated his loyalty to Tang Xiao through his actions. Tang Xiao naturally reciprocated the favor. Although there were significant reductions, he still retained considerable privileges for the Ulan family. This is an important sign that the aristocratic class is gradually beginning to emerge in the Principality of Dawn. In fact, these signs had already started to appear earlier, with families like the Underwoods, led by Prime Minister Francis Underwood, and the Shu family, headed by Shu Yan, director of the United Mining Group. Many large enterprises and consortiums have also begun to form their own family power structures. This is an inevitable process in societal development. However, both Tang Xiao and the senior officials of the Dawn Principality are very cautious about the rise of such aristocratic families due to the negative examples set by the Galaxy Republic. For instance, the Constitution of the Principality of Dawn stipulates that the chairpersons of all large enterprises must be elected by their boards of directors and cannot be hereditary. Additionally, the Dawn Principality government dispatches representatives to the boards of these large companies to monitor their activities. Despite these measures, there are numerous ways to circumvent the policy against hereditary inheritance. The power of aristocratic families has gradually begun to take root. The Ulan family, leveraging its immense financial and industrial strength as well as its marriage ties with Tang Xiao, has become the foremost family in the Principality of Dawn. Although they maintain a low profile, their influence is undeniable. According to current projections, the relocation of the Rendili galaxy will take at least 10 years. Only then can the planet's population be reduced to 200 billion, with the remaining 400 billion relocated to other star regions. Of the more than 3,600 interstellar shipyards, only 500 will remain operational outside the Rendili planet, with the rest being moved away. Most of those who cannot be relocated are the middle class or wealthy individuals on Rendili, along with the workers who serve them. These people are reluctant to immigrate because they already own many industries on the planet and do not wish to start over elsewhere. Even with the Ulan family setting an example by moving to Dawn Planet, it has not swayed their determination to stay. Therefore, time will be needed to gradually assimilate this group. On April 16, 19 BBY, within the Principality of Dawn, the model sector, and the planet Anaji, the war-torn planet finally began to recover after 6 months of reconstruction. Countless modular houses were built outside the destroyed cities for residents who lost their homes during the war. The ruins of the cities were cleared, and high-rise buildings began to rise from the ground. The redesigned and replanned building complexes gradually took shape. Residents temporarily living in modular houses will return to the rebuilt city in batches to start their new lives. These modular houses will then accommodate immigrants from the Rendili planet, who will begin their new lives in the model sector. However, the pain caused by the terrible raid 6 months ago on the model sector and the planet Anaji has not yet been erased, whether physically or psychologically. Thanks to Guardian Calvin Land for the 1200 starting coins. Thanks to Bookfriend 222619 on 8404857 for the 100 starting coins. Chapter 1737, The Iron Fist of Planet Anaji, Part 1. Although the Dawn Principality authorities continue to invest funds and materials to rebuild Planet Anaji, many people do not seem to appreciate it. This war was originally brought to us by Tang Xiao. The Galactic Republic fought against Tang Xiao, but he placed the battlefield in our homeland. Now that he is hypocritically rebuilding our home, he must have a guilty conscience. It is his duty to rebuild our home. He already owes us. The model sector should never have been dragged into this war from the beginning. Negative emotions spread among the people of planet Anaji, especially when they saw their devastated home and the simple modular houses where they now lived. These feelings grew even stronger. In other parts of the model sector, there were also many opposing voices due to the heavy financial burden placed on supporting planet Anaji. This invasion by the Galactic Republic did not improve the cohesion of the people in the model sector. Instead, it made many people's desire for independence from the Principality of Dawn even stronger. Liberal ideas have been widely spread in the model sector, and the source of these ideas is not the pioneers from Dawn Planet, but immigrants from other galaxies. In the early stages of the model sector's development, Dawn Planet itself had a very small population, so it attracted a wide range of alien immigrants to colonize and build the planet from the very beginning. After defeating the Eru people and becoming the overlord of the model sector, the Eru people who surrendered to the Fourth Civilization also brought such ideas. The Eru people originally had a very strong tendency towards autonomy. From the beginning, they were unwilling to join the Galactic Republic or accept the jurisdiction of others. Even on the Fourth Civilization side, they only became more compliant after being severely beaten twice. The same goes for immigrants from other planets. Many of those immigrants originally ran away because they did not want to be controlled by the Galactic Republic. Now that they are in a different place and are required to accept the notice of the Fourth Civilization, they are naturally very unwilling. Therefore, over time, liberal ideas took root in the model sector. As for the pioneers who came from Dawn Planet, on the one hand, their number is very small, and on the other hand, they are naturally gradually affected by such liberal ideas. More importantly, some of the immigrants from Dawn Planet often have greater power, so they can clearly see that once the model sector becomes autonomous, the power in their hands will be even greater. Those ambitious people among them naturally began to acquiesce in the spread of liberalism, consciously or unconsciously. The governor of the model sector, Volgograd Kanedi, was currently in the secret conference room. Looking at the man in black robes with a gloomy expression projected in the holographic communication, he sighed, "Do I have to take this step, Your Excellency?" Tang Xiao said calmly, "You are an excellent general and an excellent manager. In other words, you can manage the model sector very well in terms of military and people's livelihood at the same time. However, this does not mean you are an excellent governor, Kanedi." "I never thought about what would happen to me, Your Excellency the Grand Duke. I just want the people under my rule to live a better life," Volgograd Kanedi said. "That's the reason, Kanedi. You are not a qualified politician." Tang Xiao shook his head. "Actually, you are the first person responsible for the current situation in the model sector." "I can't agree. I have done my best. I fought off powerful enemies for the model sector. I seek welfare for them. I lead their production and construction. Isn't this enough?" Kanedi said loudly. "Not enough. Because you don't understand." Tang Xiao said, "You exposed this shortcoming when I asked you to be the governor. At that time, I noticed you were repeatedly provoked by the Eru people. When I asked them to push further, you failed to understand my intentions. However, because your strengths in military affairs and people's livelihood were too outstanding, I allowed you to continue as governor. To hell with politics. Do I have to engage in this nonsense just to ensure the people under my rule live a good life? You should know that what I despise most are so-called politicians like you," Kanedi exclaimed. "Unfortunately, that's the reality, Kanedi," Tang Xiao replied. "The current situation in the model star is a result of your lack of political understanding. As the model star continues to grow stronger, the residents here, beyond their basic needs of food, clothing, security, and stability, will also have political demands. But you have ignored this." He stared into Kanedi's eyes and said, "By ignoring political demands, you have, in the eyes of some, given tacit approval to their grievances." Kennedy shook his head. They're just complaining. Do you want to deprive them of the right to complain? But this complaint is causing the model sector to separate from the Principality of Dawn. Do you think this is still a simple complaint? Tang Xiao asked. As long as I am here, it is absolutely impossible for the model star region to break away from the Principality of Dawn, Kennedy yelled. What if you die, Kennedy? Tang Xiao responded directly. How long can you live? 20 years? 30 years? Do you plan to suppress the risk of rebellion and civil war until after you die? Or do you want me to turn you into an undead creature directly? Volgograd Kennedy looked at Tang Xiao blankly, speechless for a moment. Prepare for action, Kennedy. I can't let this wrong trend of thought continue to spread in the model sector. In the next 5 years, the population of the model sector will exceed 200 billion. By that time, any riot here will cause severe pain to the Principality of Dawn. Tang Xiao's expression gradually turned fierce. But a lot of people will die. Kennedy sighed. If we continue to postpone it, even more people will die. Tang Xiao's tone grew colder. Similarly, if I send someone else to solve this matter, I can't control how many people will die. While I'm here, and while your reputation in the model sector is at its peak, solve this matter perfectly. From the shadow behind Kennedy, there was a sudden burst of seductive laughter. If you don't handle things well, I will help my master take care of this place. End of this chapter. Chapter 1738, The Sorrow of Liberalism 1. As soon as he heard the seductive voice, Volgograd Kennedy was startled. He turned around and saw a slim figure standing in the shadow beside the curtain. Blue skin, scarlet eyes, and a charming figure. It was a Twi'lek woman. One of the 2 Twi'lek-specific tentacles, Leku, on her head was cut off, now replaced with a string of colorful crystals. This beautiful Twi'lek woman stood there, barely moving. Her mere presence, with her alluring look, could make anyone's hormones surge. However, a closer look revealed an extremely dark and chaotic aura surrounding her, sending chills down one's spine. The presence of this woman made Volgograd Kennedy feel a deep unease. He turned his head suddenly and said sternly to Tang Xiao, I don't need your so-called help. Tang Xiao responded with a sneer. You may not be able to find the resolve to do some things, but it doesn't matter. Darth Lilim will help you. During this period, she will obey your command. This Twi'lek woman was actually Tang Xiao's apprentice, Darth Lilim. Follow my command? She's just here to monitor me, right? Kennedy said coldly. Power must be kept in a cage. In the Principality of Liming, which high-ranking official is not under surveillance? Tang Xiao replied calmly. Kennedy gritted his teeth and stared at Tang Xiao. He said, word by word, what is the difference between your behavior and that of those tyrants? I don't care about other people's evaluations. I just care about whether the model sector can remain stable and loyal under my rule, Tang Xiao said. The communication was shut down, and the air in the conference room seemed to freeze. However, Darth Lilim seemed oblivious to Volgograd Kennedy's expression. She twisted her waist like a water snake and walked over, her slender and tender fingertips gently scratching Kennedy's back. Then, she leaned on Kennedy's shoulder and exhaled. So, let's start? Who should we start with? The radical officer Jin Chen, or the one who gave birth to a son with you and is now under house arrest? If you dare to touch a single hair on their heads, I swear I will kill you, Kennedy said viciously. Then, what should we do? Darth Lilim withdrew her fingers, put them in her mouth, and sucked them, as if tasting the prey in front of her. Kill all the traitors who dream of freedom and autonomy and return the model sector to peace and harmony? Now that I've sent you here, will there still be peace and harmony? Kennedy gritted his teeth. Then after I leave, it will become like this again. Darth Lilim chuckled lightly, but then the smile on her face faded and her expression suddenly became extremely gloomy. As the master said, if you don't move, then it's my turn. I know what to do. Volgograd Kennedy clenched his fists, his body trembling slightly. Governor of the model sector, Volgograd Kennedy. His popularity reached its peak in the model sector with this victory over the Galactic Republic fleet once again. Many people in the model sector spoke of his great achievements. In their eyes, it was Volgograd Kennedy who led them in production and construction, led them to cultivate wasteland and expand the land, and led them to defeat powerful enemies. And this time, it was the same. It was precisely because of Kennedy's ingenious calculations, his strategic use of troops, and the unity of the model sector that they were able to defeat the overwhelmingly superior Galactic Republic expedition fleet. Now, more people began to believe that only Volgograd Kennedy could lead them to a new and bright future in the model sector. But for Tang Xiao, who contributed resources and effort in this battle, and even fought in person, the people of the model sector felt that this was what he deserved. Many also believed that because the flames of this battle even reached the Dawn planet, the reason why the planet remains as stable as a mountain, thanks entirely to Governor Kennedy's wise leadership. They have conveniently forgotten about the Dawn planet, despite the fact that it was Governor Kennedy who led the annihilation of the 96 elite battleships commanded by Cassio Tag. On one hand, these people's views on Tang Xiao are prejudiced, but on the other hand, they are likely driven by ambition. For various reasons, the call for autonomy in the model sector has grown louder. Compared to the halving sector, where the indigenous population is more powerful and numerous, and the Sethwena sector, where the main military forces of the Dawn Principality are concentrated, the model sector, which houses the largest number of alien immigrants, indeed has fertile ground for such sentiments. However, on April 17, 19 BBY, Governor Volgograd Kennedy suddenly announced that, following the victory in the Battle of the Model Sector, the sector's economy had been restored. Consequently, the model sector would hold an extremely grand victory celebration 3 days later, on April 20th. This celebration would honor the people of the model sector for uniting with one heart and mind, bravely fighting against the enemy, and ultimately defeating the Galactic Republic army after a bloody battle. The celebration would be held on all habitable planets in the model sector, including Anaji, Maya Kavir, Fang of Kuna, Fist of Kuna, Tail of Planet, Orville III, and several smaller colonial and mining planets such as Eye of Kuna, Horn of Kuna, and Weeks. Even the prison planet Sonel would participate, giving prisoners a day off, extra food, and a chance to watch a documentary about the victory to boost their enthusiasm for reform. The Beast Army from Sonel would also return, both to monitor the prisoners and to join in the celebration. During the celebration, Governor Volgograd Kennedy would deliver a public speech to the entire model sector, announcing important matters. Almost everyone in the model sector eagerly anticipated this event, especially since it excluded other sectors of the Dawn Principality, such as the Haven sector, Sethwena planet, and Dawn planet. Notably, there was no mention of Grand Duke Tang Xiao of Dawn attending the celebration in person. This detail was quickly noticed by the liberals in the model sector, who, in their preconceived notions, immediately suspected that the celebration would mark the beginning of sector autonomy. They believed that the important announcement Governor Kennedy would make would be the declaration of autonomy for the model sector. Many liberals felt jubilant, excited at the prospect of finally taking this final step. However, they knew they needed to remain low-key until the announcement was official. When liberals passed each other on the street, they often exchanged glances and made small fist pumps to express their mutual understanding. Some even began making signs and flags at home, despite not knowing what design to use for an autonomous model sector. The most popular design featured Anaji at the center, surrounded by 10 other habitable planets, with 5 colonies and mining planets on the periphery. This flag, consisting of 16 stars, became a widely circulated symbol among liberals. The entire model sector was rife with undercurrents, and it seemed like a bomb that could detonate at any moment. At this time, Governor Volgograd Kennedy was in communication. In his office, Governor Kennedy was engaged in a secret meeting using several encrypted frequency bands. 7 holographic projections of individuals were positioned around the conference table. Among them were 4 humans, 1 granite, 1 semi-Resian, and 1 Aru. "Are you sure you want to do this, Governor Kennedy? This is your best chance to gain great power," one of the female humans, Miss Crassus, said. "I don't quite agree with you, Miss Crassus," the granite man interjected. "We can easily foresee that the Dawn planet will take extreme actions to deal with the autonomy of the model sector. Before discussing this topic, shouldn't we first consider who can resist the fleet of Dawn Planet, and who can stand against the almost invincible Tang Xiao? Tang Xiao's enemy is not the model sector, the Aru added. Even if the model sector becomes autonomous, we can still promise to maintain good faith neutrality towards the Dawn Planet. We can continue to provide them with industrial products, labor, and various raw materials, and we promise not to trade with the Galactic Empire. After autonomy, these resources will be prioritized for ourselves. The semi-region chimed in. In diplomacy, we can also unite with the Federation of Independent Systems to put pressure on Tang Xiao. I believe that after Tang Xiao suddenly left Count Dooku to negotiate peace with the Galactic Empire 6 months ago, Count Dooku would be very willing to help us. In fact, I have already had preliminary contact with the Confederation of Independent Systems. The idea of autonomy in the model sector is too idealistic, another male human said. Achieving true autonomy requires ideal conditions in politics, diplomacy, economy, and military aspects. But in reality, I don't think Count Dooku will help us, especially when the Galactic Empire has resumed its battle on the planet Salukami. He needs Tang Xiao's help more than he needs to address Tang Xiao's betrayal. Enough. Volgograd Kennedy raised his hand, interrupting the discussion. I didn't call you here to debate autonomy. What I want to discuss is how to resolve this matter while minimizing casualties. It seems you've made up your mind, the Aru man chuckled, and you also know it will cause casualties. This matter is not as complicated as you think, Kennedy said slowly. You still know too little about Tang Xiao. If the model sector becomes autonomous, it means death. Even if it means killing everyone here, Tang Xiao will not allow it. How dare he do this? The Semi-Region exclaimed angrily. He has the support of the planet Rendili. With Rendili's population, replacing the people in the model sector would be a significant move, but he can do it, the male human who spoke earlier said. But in doing so, the Principality of Dawn itself will suffer heavy losses, and its economy will regress for at least 10 years, the Aru argued. So what? Kennedy shook his head. The room fell silent. Indeed, once one understands Tang Xiao's stance on this matter, the issue of model sector autonomy becomes clear. They have no other choice. In that case, we have no other choice. We must show our stance to Tang Xiao, just like our planet's Congressman Thunbartula, who is willing to be Tang Xiao's loyal follower, the Semi-Region sneered. Your ideas are dangerous, Pakara, the Granite Man warned. If you continue to think this way, the trend of autonomy will never truly recede, and the sharp blade hanging above our heads will still fall at any time. Snort! So you plan to start brainwashing me? Pakara retorted coldly and closed the communication. That's right. Put away those dangerous thoughts. Tang Xiao's purpose is the same as Palpatine's. He wants to become the Emperor, but the time is not ripe yet, so the future direction of the Dawn Principality is actually not difficult to speculate. Freedom has no place here, Kennedy concluded. I have decided, and we will naturally support you. This celebration was your plan, right? What are your intentions? Iru asked. Kennedy remained silent for a moment. Are you planning to use this celebration to attract the most extreme liberals and catch them all in one fell swoop? The male human inquired. So, the Beast Legion is not actually on the planet Sonel? I made a mistake. Indeed, Kennedy sighed. I believed that as long as the people under my rule could eat well, wear warm clothes, and live and work in peace and contentment, they would be satisfied. Even when someone mentioned autonomy to me in private, I thought it was their own idea. I felt I should respect it, even if I disagreed. Moreover, it's not like these people couldn't see the results of the model sector's autonomy. So, sigh. He trailed off, lost in thought. The room fell silent, each person contemplating the weight of Kennedy's words. The celebration, once a symbol of unity and joy, now carried the heavy burden of political maneuvering and hidden agendas. Iru broke the silence. So what is our next move? How do we proceed from here? Kennedy looked up, determination in his eyes. We proceed with the celebration as planned. But we must be vigilant. We need to identify the extremists without causing panic among the general populace. This is our chance to ensure stability and peace for our people. The group nodded in agreement, understanding the gravity of their mission. The celebration would go on, but beneath the surface, A delicate game of strategy and survival was about to unfold. Chapter 1739, The Sorrow of Liberalism. Since you plan to do this, it's obvious that Pakara does not agree with your approach, the male human who had just spoken said. Volgograd Kanidi's face changed slightly, but he still gritted his teeth and said slowly, I said, some things are no longer under our control. Everyone present fell silent. After a long pause, Elru spoke up. If you do this, you may become a sinner in the model star region overnight. No matter how high they hold you up, they will hate you for all you've done. Yes, and it is impossible for Tang Xiao to remove you from your position as the governor of the model sector, the male human added. You will be set up as a target by the people of the model sector, and you will become the person who is reviled and hated by everyone. He did it on purpose. He planned this from the beginning, just like when he went to war with the Aru people. He used the method of hurting you to get what he wanted, the female human, Ms. Crassus, also said. Kanedi closed his eyes. If the people of the model sector will live a better life as a result, then it doesn't matter to me. Have you ever thought that the people of the model sector will not be better off as a result? Ms. Crassus countered. Don't forget what kind of person Tang Xiao is. He will not let his people live well. He wants war. He wants to challenge the extremely powerful Galactic Empire. He will develop the greatest potential of everyone in the Principality of Dawn, and none of this can make the people live a better life. It is precisely because of this that we try to govern ourselves. We are not afraid of war, once, twice, 3 times, but we are really afraid of never-ending war. How long will the war with the Galactic Empire last? 10 years? 20 years? 30 years? I cannot accept that my son and even my grandson are shrouded in the clouds of war, Elru said. If there is autonomy, then everyone will turn into corpses. This is the reality. Tang Xiao will not care about the so-called diplomacy, the so-called situation, and the so-called interests. Everyone who resists him will die, Kanedi sighed again. This is our only choice, obey. Then since you have decided, I will naturally give my full support. I will mobilize my people. Moreover, I also need some time to monitor those under me who have liberal tendencies, Ms. Crassus said. I will support it. I support your decision, no matter what it is, Governor Kanedi, Elru said, shaking his head. I support you, Governor. It's just Pakara. He is one of the first immigrants, and he is also the one who loves the model sector the most. Sigh. The people present at the meeting today were the leaders of all the forces in the model star region and could even be said to be the overlords of their respective domains. These individuals had gradually grown in power during the development of the model star sector. They either commanded powerful troops, controlled vast resources and economies, managed personnel and administration, or held extremely high prestige. It was not just those with strength who could enter this small circle. These people were first and foremost comrades who were very sympathetic to Volgograd Kanedi and were even loyal to him. With the support and unity of these people, Volgograd Kanedi had led the model sector to where it was today. However, 3 of these people did not come today. He Yuan and Jin Chen were already very extreme liberals and had basically been excluded. There was also a chief of the Warshan people, but this person was useful for other things besides working on projects. He didn't care. Being loyal to the model sector is meaningless. From today on, what we need is to be loyal to the Principality of Dawn and to Tang Xiao. After Kanedi finished speaking, he punched the table, a faint trace of emotion in his eyes. There was a murderous intention. Boom. Kanedi is a bastard now. At this moment, in an industrial, outside the capital of the planet Anaji, Pakara, a Semiresian, slammed his fist on the table and exclaimed angrily, We are doing this for his own good. If we don't fight now, what will we do when we go to war with the Galactic Empire? What will we fight for then? Fighting is treason. Commander, please calm down. A Rhodian assistant standing next to him quickly walked over and patted him on the back. Pakara, the chairman of a factory alliance whose main industry is on the industrial planet Orville III, was known for his imposing presence. The Semirs, being large and gastropod-like, preferred not to move much, so those under him called him the commander. Besides his significant influence over many factories, He also controlled a large security group and even an escort fleet equipped with a Grey Horse-class escort aircraft carrier. Impatiently, Pucara shrugged off the Rhodian assistant's hand, got down from his large reclining chair, and wriggled to the edge of the bed on his own feet. He looked out the window at the bustling industrial area, growing even more anxious. Pressing his fingers against the windowsill, he shouted, "Even if he doesn't agree with autonomy, he must at least maintain the status quo. His current plan, look at it. Deceiving everyone into thinking this is a celebration, only to trick liberals into arresting them? He is setting himself on fire." The Rhodian assistant remained silent. "I just don't understand. What magic power does Tang Xiao have that makes him so determined? When has Tang Xiao ever been worthy of him? Yes, Tang Xiao appointed him as governor, but is this position really so great? Why not join me in the industry?" Pucara's voice grew more agitated, his words filled with anger towards his old friend. The Rhodian assistant still didn't speak. Pucara became increasingly upset. He turned to his assistant and continued, "We have to think of something." His words stopped abruptly, because the moment he turned around, he saw a slim and striking figure next to his assistant. With a sickening thud, the assistant's headless body fell limply to the ground, his head already lifted into the hands of that stunning figure. "You!" Fear instantly gripped Pucara's heart. He gasped, and for a few seconds he even stopped breathing in sheer terror. Standing before him was a Twi'lek woman wearing black tights. She was beautiful, with a curvy figure, but in her hand she held a lightsaber, a blood-red lightsaber. End of chapter. Chapter 1740, The Sorrow of Liberalism, 3. Commander? Darth Lilim let out a seductive laugh. What a powerful and domineering title. Pucara trembled all over with fear. You are under Tang Xiao." "Aha!" The blood-red sword light flashed. The huge head of the Immerse man suddenly rolled down. The man in front of him didn't want to give him a chance to say another word. Darth Lilim's face changed instantly. She stepped on the head with her foot, her expression extremely cold. "Since when is the Master's name something that a wretch like you is qualified to utter? You don't know how to live or die." She raised her hand and waved, addressing the air behind her. "There are still 3 days until the celebration. Block the news and don't let anyone know that this Immerse man is dead." A slight electric current flashed in the air, and 5 people appeared out of thin air, wearing tight-fitting combat uniforms, personal respirators, and tactical goggles, holding C-10 Gauss sniper rifles. They glanced at Darth Lilim and responded in a low voice, "The news here will not spread. Ever." Before they finished speaking, they reactivated their cloaking devices and disappeared into the air with a slight electric current. Ghost agents. This is the first batch of agents from the Ghost Academy, secretly established by the Principality of Dawn to successfully complete training. This mission to quell the chaos in the model sector is their first assignment. Their appearance also expressed Tang Xiao's attitude towards the model sector. The liberal ideological trend here must be resolved at all costs. Like Palpatine, after Tang Xiao reached the ceasefire between the two parties in the Dawn Agreement, he immediately chose to tackle the most difficult challenges he faced. Palpatine proclaimed himself emperor immediately, and Tang Xiao began to relocate the planet Rendeli, while simultaneously addressing the model sector. These tasks are difficult to accomplish under the constraints of the other party, and now they all tacitly turn around and seize this only opportunity to resolve everything. Proclaim emperors, repress suppressions, move houses. Darth Lilim came to the place where Pucara was standing just moments ago, overlooking the industrial area. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. She licked her lips, shook the blood-red lightsaber in her hand, and jumped directly out of the window. In the industrial area, there were slight gunshots and muffled screams from time to time. There were also occasional flashes of blood-red light swaying in the rooms. When the first ray of sunlight broke through the darkness in the early morning of the next day, this industrial area had completely fallen into deathly silence. These undercurrents did not prevent the grand victory celebration in the model sector from being held smoothly 3 days later. Amidst countless applause and cheers, grand stages were set up in the major cities on the planet. Various festival performances were enthusiastically presented on the stages. Different races, different languages, and unconventional songs and dances were all performed, celebrating the great victory of 6 months ago. In the entire Model Star District, except for the departments that maintain the stable operation of society, all other places had a day off. Not only that, the district government also provided subsidies to allow major stores to sell their products at discounts. Major media and radio stations broadcast live festival programs non-stop, and because there were a large number of stages, everyone could choose their favorite performance to watch. The streets were decorated with lights and colorful ribbons everywhere, and petals and ribbons were thrown into the sky by enthusiastic citizens, falling on the streets and houses, decorating the city with vibrant colors. Many citizens also hung the flag of the Principality of Dawn in front of their windows. However, among the crowd, many people were flying the 16-star flag of the model sector, MAL, which had not yet been officially certified. After the song and dance performances, military parades commenced. Similar to the cultural performances, these parades were held in major cities across the sector. The participants were all veterans who had previously fought in battles against the Galactic Republic. Due to the scattered nature of the parades, the number of soldiers in each event varied, ranging from thousands to tens of thousands, depending on the city's size. Despite the unusual distribution of the military parades, the overall victory celebration for the entire sector did not raise much suspicion. Sector Governor Volgograd Kennedy stood on the balcony of the governor's palace, overlooking the central square of the capital area on the planet Anaji. He gazed at the countless civilians gathered below and the more than 20,000 fully uniformed and armed soldiers standing before him. Unlike the empty-bore weapons typically used in parades, the M8 Avenger assault rifles held by these soldiers were loaded with live ammunition. At this moment, there was no hesitation in Volgograd Kennedy's eyes. He had made up his mind to sacrifice a few for the long-term peace and stability of the Model Star region, even if it meant including himself among those sacrifices. He knew that after this victory celebration, his life would be forfeit, whether he survived or not. With a flash of murderous intent in his eyes, Kennedy raised his hand abruptly. The music stopped, and all cameras focused on him. Hundreds of drones hovered in midair, capturing his close-up from every angle and broadcasting it to every media station. At this moment, everyone in the model sector held their breath, knowing that Governor Kennedy's speech would determine the future fate of the sector. Meanwhile, in the Grand Duke's mansion on planet Dawn, Tang Xiao sat on his bed, watching the holographic projection in front of him. A satisfied smile played on his lips as he observed Volgograd Kennedy's expression. Adele Ulan, dressed in translucent silk pajamas that hinted at her youthful yet alluring figure, gently rubbed Tang Xiao's shoulders while also watching the live broadcast. Her eyes reflected uneasiness and fear. Despite the warm and festive atmosphere of the celebration, Adele saw it as the execution of a betrayer. Having closely followed Tang Xiao, Adele knew how he had forced Volgograd Kennedy into this dead end. She also understood that the liberal trend of thought in the model sector had taken root and flourished partly due to Tang Xiao's intentional indulgence. For Tang Xiao, this victory celebration in the model star sector was a strategic move, an act of killing the chicken to scare the monkey. Vehicle and the vulture hovercraft. All of these were provided by the Grand Duke of Dawn, Tang Xiao, Kennedy continued, his voice unwavering. The crowd, initially taken aback, began to murmur among themselves. The fervor that had filled the square moments ago was now tempered by a sense of reflection. Without the support of the Grand Duke, our struggle would have been infinitely harder, our victories fewer, and our losses greater, Kennedy emphasized. We owe a great debt to Tang Xiao and the Principality of Dawn. It is through their generosity and vision that we have been able to achieve what we have. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The audience, now more subdued, listened intently. However, Kennedy said, his tone growing more intense, we must also recognize that our future is in our own hands. The model sector has proven its resilience, its strength, and its unity. We have faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. We have built a home from the ashes of desolation, and we have defended it with our blood, sweat, and tears. The crowd began to stir again, a renewed sense of pride and determination taking hold. We must continue to work together, to support one another, and to strive for a future where the model sector stands as a beacon of hope and prosperity, Kennedy declared. We must honor our past, acknowledge our allies, and forge our own destiny. The audience erupted into applause once more, their spirits lifted by Kennedy's words. The blue 16-star flags waved proudly in the air, a symbol of their collective dreams and aspirations. "Long live the model sector," someone shouted, and the chant was quickly taken up by the crowd. "Long live the model sector," they echoed. "Salute to our home. Salute to the governor. Our land is protected by us." Volgograd Kennedy stood tall, his eyes scanning the sea of faces before him. He saw the hope, the determination, and the unwavering spirit of his people. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that together they could overcome any obstacle. As the applause and cheers continued, Kennedy stepped back from the podium, his heart swelling with pride. The model sector had come a long way, and its journey was far from over. But with unity, courage, and the support of their allies, they would continue to build a future worthy of their sacrifices. And so, with a final salute to the crowd, Volgograd Kennedy left the stage, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the strength and resilience of the people of the model sector. When the Republic invaded, those who appeared in the outer orbit of the planet were from the Dawn Planet Fleet, Kennedy said, his tone growing colder. He paused for more than 10 seconds before continuing. "We and the Dawn Planet are one. In other words, the Dawn Planet was originally part of the model sector and our neighbor. Our model sector and the Principality of Dawn are also one. A large number of immigrants have entered, further accelerating our pioneering activities. But who solved the huge unemployment rate, food gap, housing gap, and medical gap that followed? It was Dawn Planet. It was Tang Xiao. I don't understand why. Under such circumstances, some people still think that the model sector needs autonomy. We cannot break away from the Principality of Dawn, and we don't need to. We are originally one family, so why should we talk about two families? Do you think that after autonomy, the finances of the model sector can afford the import and export trade with Dawn Planet? Or do you think that the industrial capabilities of the model sector can produce enough warships to protect us while also producing enough industrial products necessary for our daily lives? And the most important thing, Volgograd Kennedy's tone was extremely cold, as if the air around him was stagnant. He looked around the audience. The expressions of the soldiers were still determined, but the faces of the people were filled with disbelief. He slowly asked, "Why do you think I should support autonomy? Damn it, he betrayed us." In a military base on the planet Anaji, Lieutenant General Jin Chen stood up and shouted angrily, "Speaking like this at the victory celebration is the most shameless betrayal of us." He turned around suddenly and said to his adjutant, "Get all soldiers armed immediately and enter combat readiness." The adjutant was shocked. "General, do you want to raise an army?" Jin Chen snorted. "Idiot! The purpose of entering combat readiness is to prepare for possible riots that may occur next." Kennedy's speech is so stupid. He lit the fuse of riots in the entire sector. Even if he doesn't support autonomy, he could have maintained the status quo, but he chose to put this contradiction in the open. "Then let's prepare to hold a press conference. I want to speak publicly. Confront Kennedy," Jin Chen said loudly. However, at this time, a sinister voice suddenly sounded from the side. "My suggestion is, don't." Jin Chen turned around suddenly, only to see a slight flash of electricity in the air. Two people holding C-10 sniper rifles and wearing tight-fitting combat uniforms suddenly appeared in the originally empty air. The two men wore tactical eyepieces that could adjust the focus and use various detection methods. Their mouths were also wrapped with a mechanical respirator. They looked extremely intimidating. "You have been arrested, former Lieutenant General of the Model Sector Defense Force, Jin Chen." End of this chapter. Chapter 1742, The Sorrow of Liberalism. 5. "You, Tang Xiao's bastards!" Jin Chen spat through gritted teeth. He glanced subtly at a spot under his desk where an alarm button was hidden. If he could press it, the soldiers outside would immediately be alerted and surround the area. Are you thinking of pressing the alarm and calling for help? My advice is, don't. One of the ghost agents intercepted Jin Chen's unexecuted action. Because if you do, we will have to kill you. And here, it will result in a more tragic bloodbath. Jin Chen's pupils constricted in shock. He looked at the two terrifying ghost agents in front of him with disbelief. He had only glanced in that direction, yet they had already anticipated his every move. Kill me, and you will die too. Don't think there isn't an anti-stealth radar to detect invisibility here, he snarled. Our lives are not important. What is important is, what will happen to this place if you die? One of the ghost agents replied coldly, accept the arrest. Another ghost agent stepped forward and lifted Jin Chen, who was equally strong, as if he were a mere chicken. He was dragged out without even the need for restraining tools like handcuffs. Jin Chen had no ability to resist. Despite having fought his way up from the grassroots level through countless battles, in front of the ghost agents, he was no different from a child. Asshole! Put down General Jin. I've already called for backup. The adjutant ignored Jin Chen's plight and reached for his gun. However, just as he moved, a loud gunshot rang out. His head exploded like a watermelon. The ghost agent who fired the shot shook the C-10 sniper rifle, light smoke still wafting from the muzzle, and said calmly, "Don't try to resist." They dragged Jin Chen out of the office, only to be met by hundreds of heavily armed soldiers surrounding the place. Hundreds of assault rifles were pointed coldly in their direction. "Put the man down," an officer barked. "Very well," the ghost agent said lightly. He released Jin Chen, activated his invisibility device, and vanished into thin air. "Stop! Stop! Put down your weapons!" Jin Chen shouted. "Put down your weapons, I'll go with them." "General, this civil war cannot break out in the model sector," Jin Chen said firmly. "I want to see how far Tang Xiao is willing to go in the face of the people's voice." Smart choice. A ghost agent reappeared next to Jin Chen, lifted him up, and pushed him towards the spacecraft. At this moment, the soldiers saw another ghost agent standing on the roof, the muzzle of the C-10 sniper rifle pointed at them coldly. This ghost agent had climbed a building more than 10 meters high in just a few seconds. They had no idea how he did it. Many soldiers couldn't help but gasp. Only then did they realize that even if there were only 2 ghost agents, facing them directly would have cost them dearly. Jin Chen was taken aboard the spaceship and left the area. At the same time, in a villa, He-Yuan, who was under house arrest, saw a graceful figure in front of her. Darth Lilim. He-Yuan was holding a baby in her arms, her face pale. She looked at Darth Lilim warily and demanded, "What on earth are you going to do? You can't hurt the child." "I'm here to relocate you," Darth Lilim said with a charming smile. "Look, this villa is so big and you only occupy a small part of it. It's really a waste. After all, a room of 12 square meters is just right for you." He-Yuan's body trembled as she looked at the scattered corpses around her. These were nannies, cooks, and cleaners, but Darth Lilim had killed them all without hesitation, regardless of whether they posed a threat. He-Yuan gritted her teeth. "Is Tang Xiao finally going to attack us? Is it possible that your beloved governor has attacked you?" Darth Lilim replied with a smirk. Lilim mocked. "You forced him to do this." "My Lord Governor, I volunteer to safeguard the unity of the Dawn Principality." Heh. Das Lilim laughed. "Let's go, Miss He-Yuan." Darth Lilim waved his hand, and the baby in He-Yuan's arms immediately flew out, suspended in the air by an invisible force. Separated from its mother, the baby began to cry, its tiny limbs flailing. "Let her go! Let her go! You bitch!" He-Yuan roared, rushing forward. But Das Lilim kicked her down, grabbed her by the hair, and dragged her towards the spacecraft. "You should be grateful that the Master ordered me not to kill you or this child. Otherwise, it would be much easier for me," Darth Lilim said with a smile. "Let me go! Bitch! Let me go!" He-Yuan continued to struggle, but without any resistance, she was dragged onto the spacecraft. At the same time, the speech of Governor Volgograd Kennedy was coming to an end. Compared to the previously warm atmosphere, the current mood was as cold as a freezer. "I am here to once again confirm to all of you that the model sector is now a part of the Principality of Dawn and will remain so in the future. The unification of the Principality of Dawn is our highest priority. We will abide by the Constitution of the Principality of Dawn and accept the leadership of Grand Duke Tang Xiao. I feel extremely honored to be a member of the Dawn Principality, Volgograd Kennedy said slowly. Glorious ass! A man holding a 16-star flag shouted angrily from the audience. This outburst ignited the entire square, and the people began shouting and cursing in unison. Kennedy, you are just a lackey. Down with the dictator Tang Xiao. Long live the model Dominion. The traitor Kennedy will die a good death. The massive wave of curses was like a tsunami, almost drowning out Kennedy's voice over the loudspeaker. But Kennedy seemed unfazed by the insults. He spoke slowly, each word firm and resolute. Anyone who tries to split the Principality of Dawn and promote the autonomy of the model sector will be regarded as committing treason. Arrest them. As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers gathered on the other side of the square sprang into action. They rushed toward the hundreds of thousands of people gathered in the square, like hungry tigers pouncing on prey. Kennedy's voice still echoed over the square. Everyone should go home immediately. Those who remain outside will be punished with the same crime. End of chapter. Chapter 1743, The Sorrow of Liberalism, 6. On the planet Anaji, more than 20,000 soldiers charged directly into the rioting crowd without any mercy. Before the military parade began, the middle and lower-level officers of all the armies had already been rotated. All officers who were considered to support and sympathize with the liberals were replaced with officers who were truly loyal to the Principality of Dawn. This replacement did not consider the issue of capability at all. Even if an officer could lead more troops and achieve better results, if there was a problem with their ideological stance, they were dismissed without hesitation. Being dismissed was just the beginning. All the officers who were dismissed were temporarily detained to prevent them from leaking information. In reality, how could those civilians get news from the army? They had no idea that in just 3 days, the army in the model sector had completely changed its appearance. The soldiers appearing at the military parade were just machines for performing tasks, and they didn't care about the autonomy of the model sector at all. There was only one thing on these soldiers' minds: obey orders. How to obey orders. Orders must be obeyed. All those who expressed anger and opposition to Volgograd Kennedy's speech in the square were captured by drone surveillance. Under unified command, the soldiers arrested everyone present. The soldiers' tactical goggles screened all the people who appeared in front of them. After comparing the face data with the database, only those who did not show extreme remarks or behavior were let go, while everyone else faced ruthless suppression. Long live the model sector, a young man shouted, but as soon as he finished speaking, he was struck in the face with a rifle butt by a Dawn Principality soldier. Blood flowed, and screams echoed. Some highly emotional liberals roared and rushed towards the soldiers, waving slogans and flags, charging at the heavily armed soldiers with their bare hands. This victory celebration was thought to be just that, a celebration. Some liberals with ulterior motives believed it was a feast to declare the model sector's autonomy. However, no one expected that their own Governor-General Volgograd Kennedy would actually want to catch them all. If they had foreseen Governor Kennedy's armed suppression, they might have prepared Molotov cocktails instead of the 16-star flag. In contrast, the soldiers who participated in the military parade all had the same ideology and clear goals. They came to participate in the military parade as a pretense. Their real purpose was to suppress the so-called liberals. Governor Volgograd Kennedy had made a precise plan. He first held separate celebration balls in the capital of each planet. Because this celebration aimed to expand the scale, it was held on all planets simultaneously, making it an unparalleled celebration. Therefore, when each planet held a separate military parade, no one realized the true meaning behind it. Caught off guard, the liberals immediately collided with the soldiers participating in the military parade in the square. Without deliberate invitation, those who were willing to travel thousands of miles to the planet's capital to participate in the victory celebration were most likely the liberals, who regarded this celebration as a huge victory. The scene was chaotic. Some people wanted to attack the soldiers' formation, Some felt guilty and wanted to run away, and some were so frightened that they wanted to hide. The crowds running in different directions made the situation even more confusing. Exclamations and screams came one after another. Hundreds of thousands of people ran around, and a stampede occurred. Many people were involved and trampled to death. The arrest operation continued unabated. Soldiers surged forward, striking anyone in their path, knocking them to the ground for the people behind to apprehend. They were well-trained and disciplined. When the front-line soldiers grew tired, they were immediately replaced by those in the back row. Additionally, a large number of B-1 combat robots converged on the square from various directions. These robots had adjusted their E5 blaster rifles to stun mode and fired indiscriminately into the crowd. Even in stun mode, the blaster rifles relied on the hard impact from the explosive gas to incapacitate people. Those with weaker constitutions couldn't withstand the force, resulting in many fatalities on the spot. "You bastards! Traitors of the model sector!" A liberal, consumed by rage, shouted as he drew a blaster pistol and fired at a soldier. The soldier, clad in protective gear, was hit several times and fell. In response, the soldier behind him raised his weapon and opened fire. Unlike the blaster rifles, these were real M8 Avenger assault rifles loaded with live ammunition. Ta-ta-ta-ta. The sharp sound of gunfire echoed briefly, but it was enough to cause large swathes of the dense crowd to fall like wheat being harvested. The army is killing people. The army is killing people. The bloody scene terrified the crowd, causing them to scatter in panic. All planetary capitals hosting celebrations descended into chaos. As conflicts escalated, the soldiers and combat robots tasked with suppressing the celebrations opened fire, resulting in numerous casualties. The blue 16-star flag was trampled underfoot, turning it into a dirty rag. These soldiers showed no mercy, especially those in the front row, the notorious Beast Legion. This legion of criminals cared little for civilian lives. Their only goal was to complete their mission and earn points to reduce their sentences. If given the chance, they would kill everyone present. Once the Beast Legion set the violent tone, the regular soldiers behind them were inevitably drawn into the killing spree. As the soldiers opened fire, the crowd fled. However, on the main street, Warthog assault off-road vehicles equipped with M247H heavy machine guns were already blocking their escape routes. Those who couldn't find a way out were herded together like livestock, forced to squat on the ground with their hands on their heads, awaiting arrest under the muzzles of countless guns. In the capital square of the planet Anaji alone, thousands were either shot or trampled to death in the chaos, with countless more injured. Under the orders of Volgograd Kennedy, the planetary authorities issued a notice for the families of the dead, injured, and arrested to come and claim them. However, they had to undergo an ideological review. If they failed, the entire family would be arrested and imprisoned. The following day was spent cleaning up the aftermath, with the army ignoring the few attendees who had managed to escape. The vast number of prisoners were transported in batches to the prison planet Sonal, where centralized detention areas had been prepared. Each area held 10,000 people, who were then interrogated in groups. Many loyal to the Principality of Dawn, or at least not supportive of autonomy, were wrongly accused. The authorities sent them back, without so much as an apology. Volgograd Kennedy was determined to quash the liberal movement as swiftly as possible, even if it meant wrongfully imprisoning many innocent people. He had made up his mind and could not be swayed. Even if sacrifices were necessary, he would not hesitate. Volgograd Kennedy's next instruction left everyone stunned, revealing his sinister intentions. They realized that the chaos during the celebration in the model sector was just the beginning. All loyal citizens of the Principality of Dawn, because those rebels who seek to provoke sector autonomy are absconding in fear of their crimes, we will now conduct a thorough inspection of all residents. A new round of census operations in the model sector will also be launched. Only loyal citizens are entitled to enjoy the sky of the model sector. All counter-rebels with ulterior motives and those inciting division will be arrested. Starting today, the model sector will stand again in the Milky Way with a new attitude, as a glorious member of the Principality of Dawn. Using this as an excuse, a large number of troops and combat robots began to conduct thorough inspections of every household. Anyone found with the 16-star flag or anything promoting sector autonomy was arrested immediately. The entire model sector was shrouded in an atmosphere of white terror, and everyone was in danger. People hid in their homes, shivering, not daring to go out. Even when it was necessary to buy food, they hurried with their heads lowered, bought what they needed, and left quickly. They feared being discovered by patrolling soldiers, which could lead to a series of questions. If they answered incorrectly, they would be knocked down with the butt of a rifle and arrested, held in jail for days. The streets were deserted, with only a few pedestrians and patrolling soldiers and B-1 combat robots. But as mentioned before, this was just the beginning. Wherever there is oppression, there is resistance. Millions of people were arrested in the model sector within a few days. Such actions only made those already extreme individuals even more radical. Resistance began to appear in some areas, with liberals taking up arms and gathering, relying on buildings and communities to carry out their resistance. The Principality of Dawn naturally controlled civilian firearms, but this control was not strict. Although there were no gun shops in the Principality of Dawn, anyone with the right connections could still obtain light weapons. Inbound spacecraft were generally scanned, but small numbers of light weapons could still get through. Unless someone was smuggling a large number of firearms and heavy weapons, it was generally overlooked. Those who owned spaceships were not restricted from modifying them. Traveling around the galaxy posed various dangers, so it was common to install turrets on spaceships. Customs officers of the Principality of Dawn ignored this, as did most of the galaxy. When the liberals in the model sector finally reacted to the sudden crackdown, the situation evolved into countless sporadic armed conflicts. But Governor Kennedy was prepared for any situation. He gave an order, and dozens of Grey Horse-class escort aircraft carriers arrived in the model sector, dispersing into the atmosphere of each planet. The cabins opened, releasing Banshee fighter jets. These jets, driven by turbine-ducted engines, were used for ground suppression on the battlefield. They could perform the missions of both attack aircraft and armed helicopters, hovering for long periods. What was even more puzzling was that, like most fighter jets in the Principality of Dawn, the Banshee fighter jet was equipped with a stealth device. In the current circumstances, the rebels had no ability to fight back. The Banshee fighter jets, previously ineffective during the Republic's invasion due to the Galactic Republic's air supremacy, now had a chance to demonstrate their full potential amidst the current chaos. In an effort to intimidate the rebellious liberals, the Banshee fighters often flew at low altitudes without activating their cloaking devices. Whenever they detected gatherings of resistance, they would swiftly respond with ruthless bombings using cluster rocket launchers. Despite these aggressive tactics, the resistance continued to grow stronger. Initially sporadic, the resistance soon saw the involvement of powerful and ambitious individuals who could no longer remain passive. These individuals, representing large companies and industrial zones, had been biding their time, hoping to capitalize on the autonomy of the Star District to elevate their status. However, Governor Kennedy's actions were unacceptable to them. If Kennedy couldn't lead them to self-governance, they decided to take matters into their own hands. These influential figures were cunning. Publicly, they professed loyalty, but secretly, they distributed weapons to support the liberal resistance. They organized the scattered rebels, using the city's complex environment to evade the Banshee fighters' bombings. They then launched head attacks on relevant departments to create further chaos. As the situation grew more complicated, the campaign of suppression and resistance in the model sector dragged on. Shootings and explosions became daily occurrences. The army, accompanied by combat robots, continued to arrest people and send them to the prison planet Sonel. In response to the escalating chaos, Governor Kennedy issued a drastic order. The entire model sector was to be blockaded. All spacecraft traffic within the sector was temporarily suspended, except for officially licensed ships. This move aimed to further isolate and control the rebellious elements within the sector. Chapter 1744, The Death of Liberalism. 19 BBY, April 23. 3 days have passed since April 20th, known as Blood Celebration Day. In these 3 days, the model sector has undergone almost earth-shaking changes. The once peaceful and serene life has been replaced by a terrifying white terror. Sector Governor Volgograd Kanedi seemed to have transformed into a different person, commanding a large number of troops and combat robots to conduct a large-scale cleansing operation across the entire sector. The public's original impression of Governor Kanedi was that he was approachable, affable, and a man of great talent and ambition. He could squat next to the pioneering land and eat lunch with the workers, or he could lead an army of millions to fight to the death with the Galactic Republic. He led the immigrants in the sector to build the model sector bit by bit, open up wasteland, and defeat foreign enemies. It can be said that his efforts were indispensable for the development of the model sector to this day. The rapid development of the model sector was largely attributed to the existence of Governor Kanedi. Almost everyone believed that Governor Kanedi was a native of the model sector, and he seemed to have never expressed his stance on the issue of self-control in the sector. Therefore, many assumed that Governor Kanedi acquiesced to the autonomy of the sector, but his position prevented him from expressing his stance publicly. Consequently, the liberals believed that once the time came, Governor Kanedi would follow the general trend and support sector autonomy. However, they were wrong. Volgograd Kanedi was a man with significant flaws in his character. He was indecisive on many issues. Sometimes he would rather be an ostrich, burying his head in the sand and pretending not to see the problems than face them directly. But as a soldier, even before boarding the Mothership, and as a high-ranking military commander, Volgograd Kanedi was very clear on big issues of right and wrong. In other words, when forced into a desperate situation, Kanedi would burst out with very powerful resolve. Tang Xiao initially didn't expect this level of determination. He just felt that Kanedi was too decadent and needed a hard push. At that time, the fourth civilization had just started, and there was no way to let him, a master who rarely met the conditions, watch the show from the sidelines, so he was forced to take action. Later, Tang Xiao discovered that this tactic seemed to be very effective, so his strategy for employing Kanedi all along was to force him. And Kanedi did not disappoint Tang Xiao. When pushed to the brink, he could even close the planetary shield and directly let the Republic troops land on the planet Anaji. He could also take the initiative to expose the coordinates of the waterway and let the Republic fleet raid the Dawn planet. These were actions that others couldn't even think of, but he did them with ease, ultimately achieving brilliant victories. This time was no different. Those who sought independence for the sector, including He Yuan and Jin Chen, saw the indecisive Kanedi. But what Tang Xiao saw was a wise and decisive Kanedi. Blood Celebration Day was the bloody result of this misplaced judgment. Tens of thousands of people were killed on the spot, millions were injured, and more than 5 million were arrested. This was the answer Volgograd Kanedi gave to the people of the model sector during the Blood Celebration Day. This bloody number told the truth to everyone in the model sector who fantasized about sector autonomy. Wanting autonomy would always be just a dream. Now, this great purge continues. The compulsory census and raids by rebels have made the people of the entire sector panic and shrouded in terror. However, it is precisely because of such a big purge that some forces behind the scenes have surfaced. As the saying goes, the so-called revolution is often a combination of a few careerists. In the model star sector, liberal thought is indeed prevalent and widely accepted. However, the sector autonomy revolution erupted solely within this sector. While the influx of immigrants played a significant role, there were deeper, more insidious factors at play. Powerful factions that emerged during the sector's development had their own agendas. For instance, He Yuan, who once served as Governor Kanedi's adjutant and had a comprehensive understanding of the sector's internal affairs, and Jin Chen, who initially followed Kanedi in various battles and gradually rose to the rank of lieutenant general, had much to gain. If the model sector achieved autonomy, He Yuan was likely to become the prime minister of the new government, and Jin Chen the minister of defense. This would be a significant leap in their statuses, providing a clear motive for their support of sector autonomy. Similarly, mine and factory owners stood to benefit. Under the current system, they supplied raw materials to the Principality of Dawn at near-cost prices, resulting in minimal profits. Autonomy would allow them to negotiate on equal terms with the Principality of Liming, potentially raising prices for scarce products and significantly increasing their profits. These motivations led them to secretly fuel the spread of liberal ideas within the model sector. To the indecisive Volgograd Kennedy, these actions appeared as mere political leanings and personal beliefs that deserved respect. He failed to recognize that these individuals were driven by the substantial benefits they would gain from sector autonomy. By the time he realized the gravity of the situation, it was too late. Volgograd Kennedy's initial response was to maintain the status quo, a typical ostrich mentality, ignoring the problem in hopes it would disappear. It was only under Tang Xiao's pressure that he took decisive action. Despite his indecision, Volgograd Kennedy remained loyal to Tang Xiao and the Fourth Civilization. When cornered, he took the bloodiest step, as Tang Xiao had anticipated. During the Great Purge, Volgograd Kennedy, with the Beast Legion at its core, arrested numerous liberals and rioters. Darth Lilim led ghost agents in a bloody campaign against the masterminds behind the unrest. While He Yuan and Jin Chen were spared for specific reasons, Darth Lilim showed no mercy to others. In just 3 days, hundreds of senior officials, entrepreneurs, and influential figures were assassinated in extremely brutal ways. In many instances, no one was left alive. On the third day, in an industrial area on the planet Anaji, hundreds of dead bodies were discovered, including the decomposing corpse of Pakala, a semi-Resian entrepreneur. The gruesome scene shocked everyone. The combination of overt suppression and covert assassinations quickly quelled the liberal sentiments in the model sector. For a time, every household in the sector displayed the flag of the Principality of Dawn to express their loyalty. Interrogations of the more than 5 million arrested criminals began. Only a few were released, while the majority were imprisoned on the planet Sonal to work as farmers. These individuals were kept together to prevent them from contacting the outside world. The other prisoners became the first political detainees in the Principality of Dawn, and their prison area effectively became the first concentration camp in the Principality. Although the liberal movement on the surface has been suppressed, the underlying sentiments among the people remain, and this ideology cannot be completely eradicated. Future efforts to suppress it will continue. Additionally, existing policies in the model sector need to be adjusted. Education and propaganda must be strengthened to eliminate the infiltration of liberal ideas into the model sector as much as possible. On April 24, 19 BBY, the governor of the model sector, Volgograd Kennedy, officially sent a message to Grand Duke Tang Xiao of the Principality of Dawn. The rebellion in the model sector had been quashed, and all rebels had been arrested. From now on, the model sector would be reborn with a new attitude. Long live the Duke of Dawn. Long live the Duke of Dawn. Tang Xiao casually tossed the communicator aside and remarked, Kennedy did not disappoint me. In 3 days, he quelled the flames of autonomy in the model sector. The cost was still very high, Francis Underwood said, shaking his head. Statistics show that in the next year, the model sector's contribution to us will be reduced by at least 40%. And society will not be as stable as before. Although Underwood did not support the autonomy of the model sector, he believed that Kennedy's actions had gone too far this time. The so-called stability of the model sector was based on the people's belief that they would one day be independent from the Principality of Dawn, said Helmut Zemo, the chief minister of the cabinet, with a note of sadness. And this kind of stability is the greatest instability for the Principality of Dawn. Don't worry about production capacity, said the Minister of the Interior. The interstellar shipyard and various factories relocated from the Rendili system have begun partial operations. In the next few years, we will continue to benefit from the demographic and industrial dividends of the Rendili system. This benefit is enough for us to ignore the decline in production capacity in the model sector and the Yago-Dur system. The problems in the model sector must be resolved. We will soon start exploring unknown star fields. At that time, I don't want the model sector to hold us back, Tang Xiao said. The new population must be sufficiently educated before they are allowed to live in the model sector. I already have a plan for this, Francis Underwood said. A new city can be built on every planet in the model sector. All new immigrants must live in these cities for half a year before being assigned to other planets in the star region. In these cities, we can focus on the spiritual and civic education of the residents. Good. Discuss a specific plan and submit it to me. The central finance of the Principality of Dawn will allocate funds to build these new cities, Tang Xiao nodded. That's it for the model sector. Is there anything else? Your Majesty, is the autonomy trend in the model sector the same as the rebel army you once mentioned? A young voice suddenly asked. Everyone turned to see a young man in his early 30s raising his hand. You are just an intern and majoring in mathematics, Hari Seldon. It is an honor to be able to sit in on such an occasion, but your speech should not become the content of our meeting, Francis Underwood said coldly, looking at the young man. It doesn't matter. This is also important, Tang Xiao waved his hand. What I can tell you is that the two are the same thing, but they can also be said to be different. The young man named Hari Seldon nodded, listening intently. Earlier, you mentioned wanting to visit the main areas of the Milky Way, Tang Xiao continued. Tang Xiao seemed to have great patience with the young man as he asked, It's been 6 months. What have you discovered? Hari Seldon responded methodically, his speech deliberate and thoughtful. Liberalism is a pervasive ideology. It emerged as a result of the weakening central power of the Galactic Republic over more than 1,000 years of peace. For those on remote planets, the choice to gain or lose the benefits of the central authority of the Galactic Republic naturally leads them to seek independence and shed their obligations to the Republic. Tang Xiao nodded, signaling for him to continue. Over the past 6 months, I analyzed samples from more than 7,000 individuals I visited. Based on my assessment, liberalism will undoubtedly impact our Principality of Dawn in the future. It poses a threat second only to the Galactic Empire because it will diminish our ability to control local areas, Hari Seldon explained. However, I didn't anticipate it would escalate so quickly in the model sector. The situation there deviates significantly from my calculations. How so? Tang Xiao inquired. In the model sector, these liberales lack a coherent action plan. They don't understand their ultimate goal or the steps needed to achieve sector autonomy. They only know they want autonomy, but have no idea how to attain it. Their actions are reckless and conspicuous, unlike liberals in other parts of the galaxy who are more discreet, Hari Seldon elaborated. This raises doubts for me. Are there fundamental differences between the two groups? And what kind of challenges will our Kingdom of Dawn face in the future?